Ahora interpretará el himno nacional de los Estados Unidos, Stepney Valencia.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? Gracias. Thank you.
En estos momentos, señoras y señores, la escolta oficial del Consulado de México en Los Ángeles hace su entrada con la bandera mexicana, seguida por la banda de guerra del municipio de la ciudad de Tijuana, quien anuncia su entrada. Ahora invitamos al cónsul general de México en Los Ángeles, Juan Marcos Gutiérrez González, a que realice el grito de independencia de México.
¡Mexicanos! ¡Vivan los héroes que nos dieron patria y libertad! ¡Viva Hidalgo! ¡Viva Morelos! ¡Viva José Ortiz de Domínguez! ¡Viva Allende! ¡Viva Aldama y Matamoros! ¡Viva nuestra independencia! ¡Viva México! ¡Viva México! ¡Viva México!
Ahora la escolta de la Policía de Los Ángeles presenta los honores para el retiro de la bandera de los Estados Unidos. Ahora agradecemos la presencia de nuestras autoridades, a quienes pedimos un fuerte aplauso aquí en nuestro escenario.
Te vas a enlazar a México.
My name is Jacques Hay, and I'm a community activist, and I have a goal in my life to try to make the city a better city every day. I'm also involved in a lot of community events, but recently inside our trophy shop, we put in a 9-hole miniature golf course, complete with palm trees, sand traps, a water hole, and we held a miniature golf contest for a local high school down the street called Miller High School, in which all 240 of the students in the school have a disability, and we raised over $8,000 having a miniature golf contest for the school. My family was fortunate enough 12 years ago to start the first camp for Jewish children with disabilities. The name of the camp is Camp Chesed. Chesed in Hebrew means loving kindness. And for 2 weeks out of the year, we take about 40 kids and their families to Disneyland, Universal Studios, the whole gambit for 2 weeks. It's absolutely free. We provide 2 to 3 counselors per child, and we take no money at all from the families and spend the whole year fundraising for the camp. I'm fortunate enough to live in a city which has beautiful climate. It's large enough that you can do anything you want on a certain day, go to the beach, go to the mountains, etc. And yet it still has a sense of community where you live. My name is Jacques Hay, and I'm a face of LA.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the first day of October 2008. It is Wednesday, and we are in City Council chambers. We were in recess for a week for the League of Cities vote League of Cities conference here in Long Beach, where we met with other of our peer cities from around California. We usually meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. here in the John Ferraro Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall. The first Friday of the month, we move out to Van Nuys City Hall in our efforts to bring City Hall closer to all Angelinos. I'm City Council President Eric Garcetti, and I want to welcome members of the public and our viewers on Channel 35 who have joined us for this council meeting. I'm joined by my colleagues, council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, and Zine, which means we have 7 members, and we are waiting 3 more to constitute 2/3 of our 15-member body and a quorum. So if council members Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, Labange, and Wesson will please make their way down as soon as possible, we can begin the meeting. Council members Smith, Weiss, and Reyes are excused today for city business. We are broadcast live on Channel 35 as well as rebroadcast in the evening. That is a service of our Information Technology Agency. We also have archived footage online of all of our past council meetings. That can be accessed at lacity.org. Where you can also watch the council meetings live from your computer by clicking on the links to the left-hand side of our home page. You also can use your telephone to listen into our council meetings by calling council phone, which is 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY. And any of our committee meetings or our full council meetings are there online, on your phone, and you can listen along. Our agendas are available 72 hours in advance pursuant to the Brown Act, and for our special meeting items, 24 hours in advance. Those are available in person at the City Clerk's office, here in Council Chambers, or online, again, at lacity.org, where there's a wealth of information about your elected representatives and information to help improve the quality of your life here in Los Angeles. If you have any constituent concerns, you can always call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 311, which can connect you with whichever department you need for neighborhood or other concerns that you have. We have 9 members now, and we are waiting council members Gruhl, Hahn, Labange, and Wesson. One last note, if you'd like to fill out a speaker card to be heard on any of the items that are before us today, we have speaker cards in the back, and we also have a capability to listen to you from Van Nuys, where you can fill out speaker cards there, and via teleconferencing we can watch you here in council chambers and on TV to take your testimony if that's closer to where you live. If you would like to be heard, just fill out a card, put the number of the item you'd like to be heard on, and please hand it to one of our sergeants at arms, and that will put you in the queue. All items receive a public hearing either in council or in committee. And we now have Mr. Smith. So with that, if we can please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right. Mr. Parks moves and Ms. Perry seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business, please.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Cardenas moves, Mr. Alarcon seconds. Without objection, that will be approved as well. Next order of business, please.
First items on the agenda, Mr. President, are items noticed for public hearings. Items 1 through 6 are street lighting district hearings, and the recommendation for council action is to open the hearing and continue the hearings and ordinances to October 22nd.
Okay. If I can ask everybody to bring their conversations to a bit of a close. We're running through the agenda now. If there are any special items, colleagues, items 1 through 10.
Mr. President, these are 1 through 6, and they're street lighting district ordinances, and there would be to continue the hearing and ordinance.
Got you. If there's no objection, we will continue the hearings and the ordinance till the 22nd of this month. So ordered. Next items, please.
Next item is item 7, and that's a street lighting district ordinance, and I believe 12 council, there are 12. Would you like to take that up right now?
Yes. Anybody wishing to call 7 special? From the council, this received a public hearing in committee. If not, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Next item is number 8, and that's also a public hearing item, and it's an ordinance regarding disestablishment of San Pedro VID, and there are no cards, I believe. Oh, there is a card.
We do have a card, so we'll call that special for a card from the public. Next item, please.
Item number 9 is also a public hearing item, and I believe that has a card.
We do, so we'll call that special. Next item.
Item number 10 is a finding of public convenience or necessity in Council District 2, and a motion is required to either grant or deny the application.
Ms. Gruhl moves the recommendation. Without objection, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 11 through 34. Items 11 through 14 are commissioners. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold those on the desk, and council members have asked if we could take those before our general public comment. We'll be doing that again today, as we have done sometimes in the past, and then we'll return for public comment, but we'll call those special. Other items?
And that would leave before council items 15 through 34.
Okay. Mr. Parks, Ms. Gruhl, and Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Parks?
Number 25, could we have that return to committee for, we need a further investigation, and on 34, that we adopt both reports.
Okay, so that would return to personnel? Mr. Parks, when you say return to committee, you meant personnel? Okay. Without objection, we'll send that. And the second item was?
Item 34 to adopt both reports.
Okay, got that. Mr. Cardenas?
31 special for Janice.
Okay. And Ms. Gruhl?
33.
33. All right. Mr. Zine.
Mr. President.
Yes,
24,
Mr. Zine.
please, sir.
A pleasure. Nice to see you, Mr. Zine.
Nice to
All
see you,
right.
sir.
We'll call that special for him. Any other specials? Not, we'll go ahead and open and close the, we already had the public hearings on this. We will take up the balance then. Please, I'm sorry, 27 I'd like to call special for myself. And Mr. Cardenas?
Continue item 34 for 2 weeks.
Okay. Mr. Parks moved the item. Mr. Parks, Mr. Cardenas was proposing to continue 34 for 2 weeks. You had moved
Is that the item
both
he has
reports?
to go back to committee?
Sorry?
Is that?
The one going to committee is 25. Going back to personnel committee?
Okay.
No, 34. I believe you had moved the reports.
Reports be approved.
Okay.
Why don't we hold that on the desk and you guys can decide whether?
Ms. Hahn wanted that put over for 2 weeks.
Okay. Do you want to? You have no problem with that? Okay, great. So we will
Thank you.
continue 34 for 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. For Ms. Hahn, that will be put over, and 27 special. With that, let's take up the balance. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 35 through 54. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, if there's no objection to consideration, those are before us. Yes, Mr. Rosendahl.
45 special.
45 for Rosendahl.
43.
43 for Ms. Gruhl.
35, 36 for Ms. Hahn.
All right, Ms. Hahn, 35 and 36. As a note, if we can send 17 forthwith without objection as well. Do we have cards from the public on any of these items?
Yes, Mr. President. I believe there are cards on 36 and 48 and 53.
Okay, we will open and close the other public hearings if there's no other specials. Mr. Labange? 41 for Mr. Labange. Any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's take up the balance, please. Open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote. Oh, we're still selecting them?
Sorry.
Okay.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Mr. President, I had my, I think, 43 and 42, I apologize. 42.
So you want 42 as well? Okay, if we can reconsider 42 for Mr. Labange. Please open the roll on reconsideration. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, and we will call that special for Mr. Labange. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is the closed session item number 55. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Okay, let's hold that on the desk for closed session, please. And if we can call the, we're not quite at 10:15, so we will wait on that. If we can return to our appointees for our commissioners next, please.
And on 11, 12, and 13, those were in committee this morning. I don't believe the committee reports have been distributed as yet.
Okay, so we're waiting for the committee reports on those?
Yes, Mr. President.
But we do have for 14?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a personnel committee report.
Let's take up item 14 then as our first one. If I can ask Mr. Horowitz to come forward to the table. Is he here? Is Mr. Horowitz here? If not... All right, I'd like to recognize the Chair of the Personnel Committee first, Mr. Zine. On item 14, the reappointment of Frederick Horowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met with Mr. Horowitz in committee regarding this reappointment. He is unavailable to be here today, and that was discussed during the meeting. Previously appointed to Labor Relations Board by the Mayor, approved by the Council 6 months ago. It was a position where he filled an unexpired term. His confirmation before the Council today is the confirmation for his reappointment to a full term. The man has an appearance. He made an appearance in Personnel Committee last week, answered the questions that we had. He's done an excellent job on the particular the board, the Employee Relations Board. His attendance is excellent. He has credentials for that particular position. He enjoys the position. He finds it challenging and rewarding, and we highly recommend his continuation on that board, Employee Relations Board. His expertise is beneficial to the City of Los Angeles, so we would ask for an aye vote for Mr. Horowitz on the board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other members wishing to be heard on this appointment? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll on the reappointment, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Next, if we can take up item 11, which is the Relocation Appeals Board. Ms. Ibarra, if you'd like to come up here to the center table, come on forward. And I'd like to recognize the Chair of our Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Please have a seat. We had a great day in committee today. We had several committed Los Angelinos who we recommended that the full council confirm, you being one of them, from the San Fernando Valley, born and bred. But with that said, I'd like to do exactly what we did this morning. If you could just, tell us a little bit about yourself, what makes you believe you're qualified, and why you want to serve. So good morning, Ms. Ibarra.
Good morning, Council.
Morning.
As I described this morning, I'm born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. Went to school at Cal State University Northridge with a health administration major and a gerontology major. I've worked for the past 7 years at Valley Economic Development Center, VEDC, under a marketing role. And most recently taken over a statewide business assistance program where we're taking our Los Angeles services across the state of California. The reason I wanted to be on the board was I think I have the community's best interest, being part of the community in the San Fernando Valley, as well as I have background knowledge about redevelopment and just knowing that it's needed and necessary. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Any other members wishing to speak on the appointment? If not, we'll make it easy. Please open the roll. I will move the appointment, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Our next two appointees are Dr. Bolton and Dr. Walton. If you'd like to come up, we just can't resist saying it. I'd like to recognize our chair again of HCED, Herb Wesson.
Thank you again, Mr. President, and members. Other than having two people, their names kind of rhyme, Bolton and Walton, and we did have some fun with that today in committee. The committee was very impressed with their skills and their ability and their commitment to the city of Los Angeles. We even put Miss Walton on the hot seat today because she's an economist, and we asked her to give us her critique of the rescue or the bailout, and she gave us a very good one, very educational one. And then I also found out that I have a relationship with a university where Miss Bolton used to be a professor. So all that aside, these are very committed and able and experienced people that I truly believe will be a big asset, not just to this committee, but to the city of Los Angeles. So let's do it again like we did in committee. We start with, you know what, I'm going to reverse the order. We're going to go from W to, this morning we went B, so we're going to reverse it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you really don't have to talk about the rescue plan.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the City Council for giving me this opportunity to serve on the Industrial Development Authority. I moved to Los Angeles 9 years ago. I'm actually Australian-born, but I became a citizen last year, in part so I could contribute to the community in these kinds of ways. So I'm an attorney. I just finished my PhD in economics from UCLA, and I've just joined the faculty of the law school at USC. I'm an assistant professor, and I teach corporate governance and corporate law. So I'm very excited to have an opportunity to serve on the IDA. I'm very interested in ways to create incentives for businesses to locate in Los Angeles, my home, and to use public financing to get them to behave responsibly as responsible members of the community. So I look forward to serving with the staff of the IDA, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Good morning, Council. I'm Lula Balson, and have been in Los Angeles since I arrived on August 12, 1965, the day of the civil unrest. And my commitment as an adult, I came out to go to college. I have been engaged in economic development most of my adult life. I have been, as Councilmember Wesson said, a college professor for 12 years. Then I practiced law for 3, and then began doing economic development work as the founder of West Angeles Church's Community Development Corporation. I, too, am particularly eager to be engaged in the IDA, which provides the incentives to bring business and jobs to my community. I have all of my adult life been concerned and engaged in issues of justice, specifically economic justice, and that translate for me to livable wage jobs, decent, affordable housing in an atmosphere of peace, and that's what we're doing. I am eager to be engaged in a way that incentivizes business to come to LA, and those that are here to stay and grow, small businesses to be able to become landowners, and all of the mission of IDA is what I'm about. So I'm eager to serve. I'm honored to have been invited to do so, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Mr. Wesson. Anyway, with that said, I can again say that Ms. Walton has a very impressive resume, and she was very articulate in committee, and I would ask that you vote in a unanimous fashion for her. But where it relates to Ms. Balton, this is someone that I've known for years. This is someone who has had a vision along with Bishop Blake, who's a pastor, a prominent pastor in our community. And at the end of the day, because of their vision, you're going to see the Crenshaw Boulevard or the Crenshaw Corridor totally change. I mean, she saw things when other people did not. This is a rare opportunity that we have, members, to get someone this quality with a proven track record. I urge and I vote on both of our committee appointments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weston. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say thank you for your service. We appreciate all of the talent and experience and passion that we sense as you speak. The question I have is really about our ability as a city to create incentives, to create the magnets for the green industry. The body that you'll be working with will have that potential to create environments and set forth the type of policies that could perhaps leverage and be opportunistic with what we're doing with the LA River Master Plan. We're actually looking at rezoning corridors, trying to create some compatibility between our residential and industrial zones, create environments where we can generate jobs and actually stimulate stronger relationships with the communities along the riverway. Can you just speak to how you would see the green industry playing a role in the city and perhaps being environmentally friendly and seeing how the bonds could, or the board that you are looking to sit on, could be a stimuli towards those goals?
Certainly. One of the
putting the microphone closer to you can hear
Sure.
you better.
Is that better? Oh, yes.
A lot better.
Certainly. Well, one of the mission is to attract manufacturing and industrial businesses, and one of the ways, it's my understanding that the IDA has already begun to do, is to expand the definition of industrial and manufacturing so that it includes biomed and green technology, those clean energies and clean businesses in our community. And I have a personal interest. It's not just where I work or working on this committee, but I live in the areas that we're talking about. I've reared 3 children in those areas. I've taught school in those areas. And it does matter. I think you have a very different interest when you are a resident of just what you're talking about. I want my sons to be able to work and live inside the city of Los Angeles. My daughter is a physicist and has done some research on the matter. And one of the challenges we have is being an arm's length away. So I'm eager to be supportive, and I see the first part of the bill to expand the definition has gone through the state house. But we need the Senate side, and so urging marketing, working inside the community where I have my greatest relationships will be something that I'm eager to do, not something that I will go along with.
Well, I would encourage if you would go to the website for the LA River, LARiver.org, and in our master plan there is a significant section on economic development opportunities, and it can help create a context of how this vision has been unfolding through the eyes of the citizens and residents who participated in the public hearings. So I highly encourage you to be familiar with it, and we're here to support you in that process.
Thank you. Sure.
Like Dr. Bolton, I would encourage the State Assembly to take up the bill which expands the definition of eligible recipients of the bonds to include high-tech, green, and more high-skilled industries. And I would do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, businesses that are working in the green industry, at the cutting edge of technology, to be able to create an area in Los Angeles, a place where industries are specialized in that area, is good for Los Angeles, because that's where a lot of the jobs are going to be coming from, with increased focus on clean energy. The second thing is high-tech industries are much lower emitters of pollution than manufacturing industries. So that's the second part. The third thing I would say is that just as the city now ties getting these tax-exempt bonds to creating having living wage requirements, you could also attach a requirement that manufacturers use green technologies. So that would be something that you could get those kinds of incentives in terms of the manufacturers that you give bonds to.
Well, in these trying times, going through this economic turbulence, your expertise, your support will definitely be needed in this city, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you to our chairman, and thank you, Mr. Reyes, as well. I just rise to support my 2 nominees, and I want to thank Doctors Bolton and Walton for putting themselves forward. It's a story of 2 doctors, a story of in some ways the best of this city. An immigrant from Australia, somebody who has worked in the heart of the city, who's been innovative, who understands some of the practical work we have to do. And just listening to you speak, I think the IDA is this amazing tool that has sometimes been underutilized, but in recent years has been a real superstar of the city. And I know that we're going to have two superstars on the authority as well with your confirmation today. So I think enough has been said. I just rise to support you. I'm so pleased to be able to nominate you today. I ask my colleagues for their support and their continuing support when you become commissioners, because in each of our districts there are opportunities to incentivize businesses, the right sort of businesses, but also schools, which is what the IDA has been doing a lot too, to help some of our independent schools here to be able to expand and to build their base. This bonding authority is something, particularly now in these economic times, is even more critical for us to be aggressive with. So I look forward to you guys being that voice, bringing your wealth of experience and expertise, and congratulations on the nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and I want to compliment you on your appointments. Both of these women have demonstrated history, and the role, as has been mentioned, is critically important for this IDA, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Lula, I've known for, I don't want to say how long, Lula, a long time from West Angeles when you did start there here, and Nina through the years, and your efforts. So I want to thank you both, and with that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
You've been approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item.
Madam President, do you wish to take up public comment at
Yes,
this
we'll
time?
go to public comment. Thank you. We'll start. I will call out four names. Heinrich Kiefer, Dr. Stan Moore, Henry Paulson, and Chuck Tenon.
Good morning. My name is Heinrich Kiefer. I'm a 30-year resident of Highland Park since 1982. I've been involved in community affairs, mostly in the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors National Association. In 1992, I engaged in the Highland Park Chamber of Commerce, serving as its president in 1995. For the past 7 years, I've served the historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council, first as its treasurer for nearly 4 years and then as president for 2 years. Neighborhood councils were created to engage stakeholders in the business of running the city. I therefore encourage the City Council to consider the latest votes of the Greater Griffith Park Neighborhood Council in their support of the historic designation of Griffith Park, and also in their rejection of any expansion, or somewhat any expansion, of the Autry Museum in Greater Griffith Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Stanley Moore, the Vice President of the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council. I'm here to report that the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council voted unanimously for the proposal, the request from the Griffith family to make the Griffith Park an historic cultural monument. 10 parks in Los Angeles already have that designation, but our Jewel Park does not. There is no legitimate argument against making the park a monument. 2 weeks ago, the Greater Griffith Park Neighborhood Council devoted over almost 3 hours to the Autry National Center's proposed expansion and approved only in a less than 40,000 square foot expansion versus the requested 130,000 square foot request. They also rejected the Autry's proposed Phase 2. They voted against an above-ground parking structure. And finally, their 7th or 8th item on their agenda was they also approved overwhelmingly that the Southwest Museum be a fully approved, functioning museum with at least 12,500 square feet dedicated to museum-quality exhibition space. The 70 organizations plus that make up the Friends of the Southwest Museum Coalition are heartily in support of those votes by the Griffith Park Neighborhood Council, and we appreciate the Greater Griffith Park's support.
Thank you. Henry Paulson, followed by Chuck Tenon.
Yes, I'm Henry Paulson, Treasury Secretary of the United States, and I'm here to ask for $600 billion from the City Council to bail out Wall Street. And they're calling us pinkies. It's a horrible, horrible thing to say about us. But we know the city council here makes a little bit of extra cash. If you could throw a donation in at some point. This bailout is necessary, and I'm on a break until Congress comes back into session. So in an interim period, I came out from Washington, D.C. to help us save Wall Street. There's a candidate, Obama and McCain, neither one of them is able to persuade the American people that this is going to be necessary. So there's an alternative by some crazy guy named Lyndon LaRouche, but you should not believe him. He has his plan B called the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act. He's talking about financial chaos of the market system. You should not listen to him. Eric, Bill Rosendahl, you guys should totally ignore him. This is a credit crunch. The market system is sound. The long-term market system is sound. You just have to believe that this bailout is necessary. So if any of you here want to throw in a donation, do so, but don't listen to the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act. That's not a solution. Like I said again, don't believe anyone that calls us pinkies at Wall Street. We're not looking for handouts. We're not bums. We're not any of those things. So in the interim period, that's why I'm here today. Ask for a contribution until session comes back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chuck Tenon.
Good morning, Madam President and council members. We the people, for the people, by the people. If we don't bail out corporate America, who got us into this mess, we will have a recession. Who is the we? Not the banks, corporate America, Wall Street, Treasury Department, Congress, LA City Council. So it must be us, the people, taxpayers. We finance and bail out this country every time there's a crisis. We must pay for their mistakes and greed. We don't share in the profits, only in the losses. In this bailout, the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. But this is America, land of the free. Who are the free? The financial world, who benefit either way at our expense. We the people bailing them out. Wall Street, the Bush administration, banks, lending institutions, oil companies, loss of housing. But guess who pays and pays? I got the answer. Blame it all on the people. Make them pay for it. It's the American way. This country has always survived over 200 years. God bless the generosity of we the people. Bailing out our greedy banking institutions and Wall Street, the rich get richer on us. Now they need $700 billion more so we can bail them out so they can get rich at our expense. Taxpayers Rescue Act of 2008, where the taxpayers pay, because if we don't, they inflict fear, there'll be a disaster. You gotta laugh. They're fighting each other so they don't have to take it out of their pockets and get it out of our pockets. You know what? IndyMac Bank went under. Freddie Mac went under. Why didn't McDonald's go under? And President Bush gave his speech the other night and stated that this country is on the verge of a major disaster, economic disaster. Every day that goes by, it'll get worse. If we don't pass this $700 billion bailout of Wall Street. Oh, by the way, Congress will be out tomorrow, Monday, for a Jewish holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to our next public speakers, we do have an item number 41, which, Tom, I think you've had all your questions answered, and to let LAPD go back to work.
Thank you very much, members. This is a grant, and it has to do with safety. I got my questions answered for the police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll on item 41, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. That item's been approved. Thank you. Next speakers, excuse me, for public comment, Maria Barragar, Ada Briceño, Norma Huerta, and Reverend David Farley.
Hi, I'm a member of the LaRouche Political Action Committee, and I would just like to say it's been about 3 decades that our organization has been talking about a financial crash if globalization and free trade is used. Now, in the United States, we've had about 13 banks collapse, the last one being Washington Mutual. And by us having the leadership in the White House and the leadership of the Democratic Party and Republican Party bail out Wall Street while you're having 1 million Americans lose their homes, lose their jobs, lose their schools, it makes you question, what is leadership in our country doing right now? Why is the leadership in both parties not standing up for what the preamble and the Constitution stands for, or even remembering our history, right? Because we did fight the American Revolution, the Civil War, and we were, and because we fought these wars because we wanted to become a republic for the people, and to serve as an example for the world, that it is possible to be moral, to be good, and to be productive, to be a productive nation. And the reason why I'm here right now is because I know the City Council knows who we are, and I know you guys have heard of the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act, which I'm not going to talk about here. And there's no reason why this legislation shouldn't be passed here, so that we could put pressure on Congress and get Congress in the right direction to start pushing for policies to defend the interest of the lower 80% of income brackets, not investment banks.
Thank you. Ada Briceño, Norma Huerta, and Reverend Farley.
Good morning. My name is Ada Briceño, and I'm Secretary Treasurer of Local 11 Unite Here. I'm here today with Norma and her fellow co-workers to urge you to take responsibility for the Aramark's treatment of its workers at the LA Convention Center. Aramark workers at the Convention Center prepare and serve the food to the visitors and conventioneers every day. Many of those visitors actually feel that they're the face of Los Angeles. Yet these ambassadors of our city have worked without a contract for over 2 years now. Is that fair? Is it appropriate given the level of investment this council and the city has put into the convention center? As you all know, the convention center is experiencing a booking boom, and this is a great success story for Los Angeles. However, while the convention center makes money and its contractors like Aramark make money, workers should not be working under an expired contract with benefits for the past 2 years. For example, a first cook at the Staples Center makes $17.26 an hour versus $14.40 per hour for a first cook doing similar work at the convention center. A stand lead, the position that Norma holds, makes over $1 more an hour at the Staples Center when working a 6 or 8 hour shift than Norma or her fellow stand leads at the convention center. And the hourly levy contribution at the Staples Center health insurance is over 40 cents higher than that made by Aramark for its LACC workers. These numbers may not sound substantial, but for these workers caring for families and trying to sustain their lives in a cruel economic environment, these numbers mean a great deal. The city should be concerned by Aramark's proposals in these negotiations, and it should contemplate the public trust implications of feeding the public money. Please call and meet with Aramark and tell them to resolve this.
Thank you. Ms. Rosenthal, do you want to wait till the other speakers, or you want to just say a quick comment?
No, I'd just like to make it quickly, if I could say that we're very much appreciative of everybody being here. We're not allowed to directly react to public comment, but I do want you to know that it's heartfelt by us. And I think the chair of our committee might want to say something as well of what we could do at this point in time. Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, thank you. Just as a point of clarification, in commerce, trade, and tourism, of course, we oversee the convention center, and in these very tough economic times, what I'm going to do is schedule in 2 weeks a hearing in my committee to hear your testimony and meet with the general manager of the convention center to see if we can't talk about a good outcome to this. So 2 weeks, I'll schedule it in my committee. We'll have a full hearing and investigation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Rosendahl. Norma?
Good morning, council members. My name is Norma Huerta, and I'd like to thank you for your time and patience, attention this morning. For the past 13 years, I have been a food service worker for Aramark at the Los Angeles Convention Center. I am a stand lead, and I am proud of the work I do. I believe the person's performance at work is a reflection of who they really are. I also appreciate my job because it gives me the opportunity to meet different people and the opportunity to represent Los Angeles. It also provides me with health insurance I need for my family. As a supervisor for the past 13 years, I only make $13.75 an hour. But until now, my job has provided me with free health insurance for my family. It is important to me because I have 4 children. My husband works in construction and does not have health insurance through his job. When I was pregnant with my baby daughter, Destiny, I had a high-risk pregnancy. But because I had health care insurance, I got high-quality health care, and she was born perfectly healthy. I also have pre-diabetes, and I am being monitored by Kaiser. My husband suffers from severe allergies and allergies that hinder his work in construction. So health care insurance, the health care insurance I have worked so hard for has been critical to my whole family. Unfortunately, we have now worked for over 2 years without a new contract from Aramark. This means we have no raises for over 2 years. Worse than that, Aramark has not offered enough money to maintain the health benefits. This is true even though health care continues to get more and more expensive and the cost of living gets more and more unlivable. We are proud to serve the convention center. We are proud to serve the city of Los Angeles. We deserve to be treated with respect. We deserve to be treated better than this. Please demand that Aramark do the right thing and negotiate a fair contract with its workers. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Reverend?
Thank you, Madam President. My name is David Farley. I'm here as pastor of a multi-ethnic congregation of working people in Echo Park United Methodist Church, not too far from here. I'm also here as a part of a network of religious leaders from the diverse faith communities of Los Angeles who passionately believe that the well-being of this city is dependent on the well-being of those who labor to make us a community. And it appears that you feel that way too, and I want to encourage you in that. We know that those who provide so much of what makes the city run are often unnoticed and taken for granted, and we appreciate the notice. In a way, I'm here to say, let those who have eyes see. We need to notice those who contribute to the well-being of our community, particularly those food service workers who work at the convention center in Lacoma and the office dining room at AT&T, who are seeking a fair deal from a company whose success is built on their labor, Aramark. It's time they be noticed. We notice them, and to provide for those who feed us, let those who have eyes see. Let us see the contributions of the workers and honor them. Let us see the needs of their families and respond to them. Let us be aware of the unjust intransigence of their employers and challenge them. And so I give thanks for the Council's consistent and real commitment to the working people of Los Angeles, for the many times you have shown solidarity with them and taken the leadership in acknowledging that the economic health of this city is intrinsically connected to the economic health of its working families. And I ask you to continue this leadership and commitment on behalf of these food service workers and as the contracting party, and tell Aramark that we care about the hands that serve and feed our residents, and that we don't really want their business if they don't treat their workers with respect and dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Ms. Hahn, for having that hearing in a few weeks about this issue as well. Mark Samet, followed by Joseph Elkins, followed by Louis Wilden, it looks like, and Pamela Wells.
Hello, Council. My name is Mark Samet. I speak with the authority of being with Lyndon LaRouche, who is really the economist right now in the world who's gained international notoriety for being the guy who predicted this collapse and really has put forth measures to deal with it for over a year now. Now, this Council has been sitting on these proposals. Meanwhile, if the United States were a ship, that ship's hull would be rotting out. And the leadership, the very visionary leadership of the Republicans and Democrats in Congress, in the Treasury Department, also the President of the United States, has demanded that the American population go down into the hull of this leaking ship and drill holes into the bottom to let the water out. This is crazy. So, we're in a time that tries the leadership of every nook and cranny in the United States. Los Angeles is not a nook and cranny. The definition of leadership is when people actually stand up against what is considered popular opinion, and they act for the welfare of the nation instead of acting for the welfare of themselves. So I say to the people here in a very personal and subjective way, if you're not prepared to act for the welfare of the population of the United States, not only are you going to enrage that population and really become their enemy, but you should probably retire from public service. You should probably find a career in which, you're not responsible for the lives of other people. Because this kind of negligence to deal with the crash is actually criminal. So we're really asking people, even in a city such as this, to put forth the kind of solutions that we've said. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elkins, followed by Mr. Wilden.
Hi, Council. So, Hank Paulson seemed a little under the weather, huh? I hope you guys got to hear his presentation earlier as he was addressing the bailout for our friends on Wall Street. There's an immediate emergency in this nation. You've had Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, you've had Wachovia, Washington Mutual, all the major banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. These things are bankrupt not individually, but because the system itself is rotten at its core, as it has been for the last decades. So today, we're here to demand that this bailout that there be a voice from this city council against the bailout. And that's what we're looking for you today, councilmen, to do, to act on, is the general welfare for the United States. Join Detroit, St. Louis, Missouri, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh in passing this act. This is a resolution that would reorganize the banking system. Today we have a discussion in the news of a bailout for Wall Street, and the alternative is supposedly to do nothing. Why are those our two options? Bail out Wall Street or do nothing? In the Depression, Roosevelt had a different option, which we could use today. It was called bankruptcy reorganization. And we're here to mobilize that memory, to jog that memory that you've probably lost in the recent period. So please reconsider the task of public service from the standpoint of a voice that can call in a chorus with Indianapolis and Jackson, Mississippi, and the other state legislatures that have also supported this bill. And let's get the corruption in Congress and the good people in Congress to be led by the good people rather than the other way around. Give them your support.
Thank you. Louis Wilden, followed by Pamela Wells, followed by Arnold Sachs.
Hello, Council. I hope I have the Council's undivided attention. My name is Louis Wilden. I'm also with the LaRouche Movement, and LaRouche was right about this crash. Any argument against that, I think, is a little bit insane. So we're asking for the council members themselves, not necessarily staff, but the council members themselves to meet with us because we got to recruit you to our movement. Because LaRouche is the only one that's posing the real solutions to this thing. My friend Joe went through it. Bank of America, Wachovia, Washington Mutual being consolidated. The banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, which are bankrupt themselves, are buying up these kinds of banks. Citigroup, et cetera. These banks are bankrupt. The whole thing is coming down. as LaRouche predicted, for the last 40 or 30 years. And we need you guys to listen to this question. And now they want to bail it out. They want to take $700 billion of the taxpayers' money and back up a bunch of criminal financial paper that is responsible for taking down our manufacturing sector, our industry, our technological sector. They want to bail this stuff out, while $700 billion could very much well be used for building massive train networks, massive transportation networks, massive power and development projects and things. I'll give you an apt metaphor for the bailout, because you're dealing with criminals like Hank Paulson. This is the metaphor that you have to think of. Pay attention. Imagine a rape victim who is going to get rape counseling. And lo and behold, the person who walks in as her counselor is the man who raped her. And he says, "Don't worry, I'm here to help you. I'm an expert on rape." That's the bailout. That's what's going on in this country. So we need this Homeowners and Bank Protection Act to be passed. I request meetings with every single one of you. And if you don't do that, then there is a movement out there called the LaRouche Youth Movement that is more than willing to organize the population to be able to take your jobs. Thank you.
Pamela Wells, and then Mr. Arnold Sachs. Ms. Wells. Then I'll be followed by Arthur Hansen and Daniel Wright.
Good morning. Can you hear me? My name is Pamela Wells. I am here to seek your help in a personal situation that has gotten completely out of control. I have asked many city and county employees as well as private attorneys for help, and no one seems able to or willing to help me. I'm a 61-year-old renter in Los Angeles. I advertised on Craigslist for a roommate to pay half the cost of the rent and ended up getting some kind of monster as a so-called roommate. There are no laws specifically aimed at this problem of roommates, so I have been stuck with this monster in my apartment and in my life for the past 2.43 months, and it is killing me. This roommate, who presumes to be an attorney, has never paid the required security deposit nor the rent for September. In addition, the sublease that he signed required him to pay half the utilities in the apartment and to replace all household goods and foodstuffs that he consumed. He has done none of that, and I am not only losing my mind with this vicious man in my house, but I will literally be homeless this month if he continues to occupy my apartment, because I simply do not have the money to pay his half of the rent, plus all the monies he is costing me in the profligate use of my apartment's electricity and in his daily theft of household goods and foodstuffs. So far, in the nearly 2.43 months he has resided in my apartment, the man has bashed down the entrance door to my apartment, broken the one toilet in the apartment, stolen my eyeglasses and the remote control from my bedroom's air conditioner, caused my electricity bill to climb approximately 300%, which I cannot pay. He leaves his dirty dishes, preventing me even from using the kitchen faucet. I have to clean up the mess. One day he stole the key to my apartment, which was on my key ring, so that when I came home from my church's writing class in the evening, I could not even get into my own apartment. The man had thoroughly locked and bolted the door and left the apartment. I spent 4 hours driving around trying to get a hotel room for the night. A week or so ago, he brought my little dog Oliver through the 3 doors of the apartment and the complex out onto La Cienega and left him at rush hour.
I'm sorry. What district is that in, madam?
It's Councilman Weiss's district.
Okay, we'll see if we can get someone from Mr. Weiss's office here to be able to talk to you. I apologize for your challenges. Thank you for being here today. Mr. Sachs, followed by Mr. Hansen.
Good morning, Arnold Sachs. I can't believe my ears. Crooked government resembles train wreck, so I'm addressing the crooks in the government. People coming here asking for you to sign to overturn legislation. There's a bankruptcy, all right. A bankruptcy in the city council. It's one of morals. I'd like to talk about another train wreck, and that was the one with the Metrolink. I've come before the city council numerous times regarding a transportation item, regarding the $35 million that was allocated to the Mid-City Exposition Light Rail line. The mayor, in recent discussions regarding the Metrolink disaster, has allocated $5 million from the LACMTA. for rail improvement. My point being, that's $5 million from LAC-MTA for the Metrolink for rail improvement. Please, somebody, we have the father, the motion maker, for changing the color of the Aqua Line, which was the original designation for the exposition line, to the Rose Line. We have the head of the construction committee. We have documentation. Please, somebody, present to the public why the city is giving $35 million to the Mid-City Exposition Line when there is no corresponding documentation for that department. Yet they can come up with only $5 million for safety for the Metrolink rail line. That's a real situation. There's real dangers on the rail line. There is no mid-city line that there's $35 million.
Thank you,
Please.
Mr. Sachs. Mr. Hanson, followed by Daniel Wright, followed by Diana Barnwell.
I'm Arthur Hanson, 37-year city employee. Last time I was in here, I observed one of your city council persons acted in a out-of-order manner by interrupting the proceedings, regular proceedings, by trying to bring up amend a non-agenda or an agenda item. If that person had been working for me, I would have taken that person for drug testing. That's my opinion on that. The other issue is I was put in a speaker card on item number 14. Nobody called me to let me put in my comments. And the third issue is underneath the Brown Act, 5 days prior to the council meeting, the council agenda is supposed to be available to be mailed. You may have to post it 3 days ahead of time, but it's supposed to be available for mailing. If you don't have it available for mailing, and it's only posted 3 days, you're violating the act in spirit, if not the act itself. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for your information, that item 14 had a public hearing prior to that. It would be a request of a council member to have that be called. And 72 hours, is the rule on the Brown Act. Yes, Mr. Wright.
Good morning, Madam President and Council. Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard, on behalf of the Friends of the Southwest Museum, on the web at www.friendsofthesouthwestmuseum.com, and join the debate at www.blackhatblog.wordpress.com. We have distributed for you today 2 items: a color brochure from the Mount Washington Voices Project and an award-winning project of the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance, one of the founding organizations of our coalition. We are not asking that you read all 7,000 words of the history of the Arroyo Seco culture in Mount Washington, but I would direct you and your staff to the section printed in green on the back, where there is a discussion of the history of the Southwest Museum and the important role that it's played in the development of the Arroyo Seco culture and the role it could play as a cultural tourism anchor in the middle of the Arroyo Seco that links greater Los Angeles to Pasadena, another important cultural center. Also, you'll see pictures of El Alisal, the Arroyo Stone House built by the hands of Charles Fletcher Lummis in the shadows of the Southwest Museum. This is an important cultural institution that should not be lightly ripped from its anchor and moved to Griffith Park. The second handout is a copy of an announcement of an estate gift of $1 million to the AIDS Healthcare Foundation by my friends Carl Mattis and Carl Johnson. Note how the announcement specifically discloses the nature of the gift as an estate gift of $1 million. I've been asked to contrast how this gift was announced to how Mrs. Autry announced her gift of $100 million in the year 2000. Although hers is also based on an estate pledge, it's been characterized as an endowment. Endowment in a museum is only money that's in hand and invested, and therefore it calls into question the credibility of the Autry. Please watch this issue carefully. Thank you.
Diana Barnwell, followed by George Willis. Then we'll go out to the San Fernando Valley for Mr. Rick Nightingale. Ms. Barnwell.
Good morning. My name is Diana Barnwell, and I've come to you to express my concern for the noticeably reduced city support for the Southwest Museum, the city's first museum, and supporting that it remain in its historic site and retaining its cultural integrity. I'm coming to you from a position of 20 years involvement with supporting the Southwest Museum through its various trials and tribulations. I was at one time on the board of the Southwest Museum and then segued into becoming on the board of the Autry Museum when the two merged in March of 2003. The city's support for the museum has a long history. It goes back as far as 1987 when Mr. Alatorre, Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Reyes were very vocal and supportive of the retention of the museum with its cultural integrity. Mr. Reardon, who was our mayor at the time, established a Blue Ribbon Committee. Even the state level, Senator Torres offered a proclamation, Your body in February of 2003 presented a resolution supporting the museum and recognized it as a culturally significant property. I would ask that you please consider carefully any issue coming before you, such as the Autry expansion in Griffith Park, which would forever sever the Southwest Museum's priceless connection and collection from its proper place, thereby compromising the cultural integrity of a nationally recognized cultural site. Please don't lose this important part of our city's cultural legacy. I would like to hand in a copy of the resolution from February 2003 and ask that you honor it and proceed in the same direction in support.
And our officers will take that from you and distribute. George Willis, followed by Rick Nightingale.
Thank you. My name's George Willis. I live in Hollywood near the Gene Autry Museum, and I work doing construction for the film industry. I first became involved with the Gene Autry Museum while working for the Walt Disney Imagineering Company in 1988 when I helped build the display cases for the museum's grand opening. I've been a frequent visitor ever since, and whenever I have friends visiting from out of town, I also take them to the Autry. In addition to that, I also take them to Griffith Park, which has its own rich history. I hike in Griffith Park every week and sometimes go on picnics there on the weekends, along with thousands of other people from all over Los Angeles and from all over the world. I believe the city needs to protect all of Griffith Park as a historic monument. It should not just protect parts of it while leaving others open to development. Los Angeles has other buildings that could be used for the Autry Museum's expansion, including the currently unused Southwest Museum site in northeast Los Angeles. Los Angeles needs to preserve Griffith Park as open space. It's part of the unique fabric of living in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go out to the San Fernando Valley to Rick Nightingale. Out to the San Fernando Valley. Mr. Nightingale? Yes. Hold on one second. We're having technical difficulties. We can't hear him. Could you speak again into the microphone, Mr. Nightingale?
1, 2, 1, 2.
There. We have you now.
Very good. Yeah, Rick Nightingale. I was watching news last night, and I see one of the councilmen out there in Irvine stating that they don't think they need any power plants. I mean, the whole Southern California is out of land just about, unless you go to Lancaster or way out. But like you say, Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, all the way out in Orange County, they're out of land. So then he's out there spurting that, oh, well, the city council says, well, we don't think that they should put this thing. I think they ought to stick with their own, where they're in office at, instead of going and voicing their opinion regarding what City of Los Angeles, like I think that we need more power plants because we're having power shortages. Then let's skip from that. Let's go to the mayor turns around and says, a plan set goal for housing. Okay, and he thinks that we're going to get $5 billion from the state, local, and federal to turn around and have people, everybody should own a house. Oh, I agree, but everybody has to earn to own a house. Like I had to sell one of my toys to turn around and buy a house after I got married. And I didn't want to, but it was paid for, and I had to because I wanted to buy a house. Where do they get that everybody should own a house, and how many people are going to make $90,000 a year to turn around and do this? I'd like to see everybody making $90,000. It would be really great. But you people are the ones that turn around as pushing everybody should own a house. You're part of this whole problem with the banking. Pushing your friends to turn around and have this thing about banking that everybody should own a house. Everybody would like to own a house, but everybody can't own a house. They have to rent because they can't afford it. And I still don't see all the schools crying that they need more teachers turn around because there are so many people enrolling to get educated to get a better job. They're not doing anything for themselves. They want a handout. And that's all it turns out to be. Everybody thinks they should have a handout. And I don't think I should. I spent 45 years working hard for my money, and I don't feel like I have to give it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Kenyon, Olga Hall, followed by Michael Carrion.
Thank you, Madam President and council members. My name is Mark Kenyon, and I live at 505 West Avenue 44 in Mount Washington. Soon, the council will have an opportunity to approve or deny the Autry's expansion plans in Griffith Park. These plans and the process they follow, that they're currently following, are premature, and you should deny the approval. The Autry has failed to disclose the impacts of their plan on the historic Southwest Museum, the first museum for the city of Los Angeles. If you allow them to proceed, you will be aiding the Autry in breaking their fiduciary promises and the committing of a cultural piracy, and will have contributed in great measure to the killing of one of Los Angeles's great cultural treasures. This does not and should not happen. I was at the meetings where the Autry and their consultants presented the facts and the findings from their studies. These showed and continue to show that the financial situation in the past was less dire than generally known or acknowledged, and for the future could be on par with any cultural institution. But this did not meet with the vision of Ms. Jackie Autry, and she has from that day to this day tried to spin the Southwest Museum as a failure. I urge you to reject this vision and Mrs. Autry's plan, to read the reports and the facts, and to stand up and save our city's first museum and the needless further development of Griffith Park. Thank you.
Ms. Olga Hall, followed by Michael Carrion, Michael Lofton, and Esther Lofton.
Good morning, President and council members. Last time I spoke in front of this council, I talked about Olvera Street. This year, Olvera Street has had extensive work on their sewer system, work that has been needed for years. And for several years, work has been done on all the historical buildings in and around Olvera Street. They have been restored because people care about their history and their past. Olvera Street holds part of the history of this city. The Southwest Museum holds another part of the history of this city as well. And in its restoration, it has lived for 100 years. It is a jewel, and it's worth saving. The Southwest Museum holds the Native American collection. The Casa de Adobe contains the early Hispanic culture, and the Loomis House, where Loomis lived, is another museum. These three buildings are within 4 blocks radius of each other. They hold the history of this city on the northeast area. They intertwine and tell a story, one that you must not allow to disappear unnecessarily. I am sure that each one of you would be outraged if the Autry would come and loot Olvera Street. You would be furious if Autry would rob Olvera Street essence, wipe out its soul, and turn it into a school or a community center. This is exactly what the Autry is doing to the first Southwest Museum, to the first museum in Los Angeles, the Southwest Museum. If you are connected to this city, if you respect and love the city, you must protect the Southwest Museum as a first-class museum. That's exactly what this museum is, a first-class museum. Many of you...
Thank you very much, Ms. Hall. Michael Carrion? Michael Carrion? Michael Lofton? Followed by Esther Lofton. Thank you.
Good morning,
Or
President.
Esther, you may speak first.
Good morning, President.
Good morning.
Brewer. I'd like to take whatever time and
Please.
pieces too.
And could you
interesting.
lift the microphone up just a little bit so we can, thank
Sure.
you.
My name is Esther Lofton, and I'm a resident of the 10th District. It was interesting to hear this morning by one of your council members that the problems that I'm bringing before the body may not be responded to today. However, I was here last year about one of these issues on October the 20th, and to this date, there's been absolutely nada. My husband, Leon E. Lofton, Jr., was an honorably discharged, disabled combat infantry veteran of a foreign war who served in the 92nd Infantry Division, officially designated as Black Buffalo Soldiers, who was medically discharged September the 25th, 1945, into a society that was as vicious as the society from which he was drafted on November the 25th, 1942. A society that denied him the right to gainful employment for himself and even for others. Even though he had graduated from West Virginia College June the 2nd, 1941. Now that issue, he has an issue of a case that lacks execution and enforcement. But for the other two matters I'd like to mention, I'd like to cite a reference called Job of a Congressman that was written by Techeron and Udall, Congressman Udall. There are some matters that courts cannot even handle. And in this instance, it becomes the job of your representatives. One of these matters involves a young man in the 8th District named Carl Stedman. He was convicted and fined without cause of violating Section 14601.1 of the Vehicular Code, reckless driving, in the Inglewood Municipal Court, and convicted and fined without cause of violating Sections 242, 243 Penal Code.
And Ms. Lofton, we do have I apologize, a 2-minute timer,
Yes.
which is just going to have to, you take his with,
Yes,
okay,
I'm
we'll go
taking
ahead.
his too. Okay. A matter of battery, that's the Penal Code, in the Culver City Municipal Court, just to cover up the lies of 2 Deputy Los Angeles sheriffs who had submitted a statement to another officer who recorded it on an affidavit. The third item that I'm going to refer to is about my son, Michael Lofton, the item for which I was here October the 20th, 2007, regarding which I have never received a response. Michael is a resident and a property owner in the 10th District of the City of Los Angeles, and he has been a senior electrical mechanic at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for the last 29 years. But since October the 17th, 2007, he has been on no shift, no pay basis without cause. The 3 matters I have cited defy the admonitions of a Barack Obama who made on Father's Day a statement regarding black men being irresponsible. And the cases that I have brought to you today defy that definition, because it's not black men who are irresponsible, it is government that has been reckless and unconcerned. Each of these men, it doesn't take much imagination to understand that they have endured many usurpations and violations of their rights along the way. And this government gives them the right to fight back, to protest, and to try to build new institutions to protect them. But we cannot do a thing without representation from the people who are law-abiding. You have the gist of everything.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure. I hope I hear this time.
Thank you. That does close public comment. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Madam President, do you wish to recess the regular meeting and take up the special meeting?
Yes, we will go to the special meeting. Yes, Mr. Labange?
I solved the question on 42 if you want to put 42 up and gone.
Okay.
Caltrans can then go back to work. It's a report back in 30 days on the freeway system.
Okay.
Little point about the two constituents who spoke. Can we see that DWP gets with them?
Most definitely. If we can ensure, maybe we can, I don't know if there's anyone here from the DWP. Mr. Rosendahl, we can get him a contact information. Madam Clerk, let's go to the special agenda, and then we'll go back to item 42.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruelhan, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Weston, Zine, Garcetti, 13 members present, and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. First item?
This is a one-item meeting, and it's a closed session item. Do you wish to continue that matter and take that up with the other closed session?
We will do that and continue that to the regular meeting.
And do you wish to adjourn the special
We
meeting?
will adjourn the special meeting. If we could, since Mr. Labange has had his questions answered on item number 42, open the roll on 42, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
Did my thing come up? Yeah. I'm sorry. I got stuck. 13 ayes.
Thank you. That item has been approved. Next item.
Next item is item number 8, and that was called special for cards from the public.
Mr. Sachs.
Yes, good morning, Arnold Sachs. There was a speaker earlier during public comment regarding the questionable practices of the council in regards to the Brown Act. And so I come before the council regarding this item, and it's disregard for the Brown Act. When this first appeared on the council agenda as a motion to approve the San Pedro Merchant-Based Business Improvement District that Ms. Hahn brought before the council, there were some speakers from the San Pedro City Chamber of Commerce, there was some royalty here, and there were some cards submitted because the item was noticed for public hearing. Yet nobody was allowed to speak because the item had been closed for voting. It was approved, closed for voting. Nobody was allowed to speak again, but it violated what that had to do with the violation of the Brown Act, or what that had to do because it was noticed for public hearing, is beyond me. Nobody ever explained it. Nobody explained it to the public. If it was closed then and not allowed to be reopened because it would have been reopened for the voting, and it was approved, how did it get dissolved? What occurred to dissolve the Business Improvement District if the voting had been closed, the Business Improvement District had been improved? Please explain for the public's benefit how it could be reopened for, I guess, disapproval.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs.
Thank you, Madam
Madam
President.
Clerk, that item is now before us. If you'd open the roll on item number 8, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Mr. Sachs, don't go too far. Item number 9 is next. You don't want to speak on item number 9, okay? Anyone wish to call that special? If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on item number 9, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Next item?
Next item is item number 24, and that was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Thank you. Mr. Zine? Mr. Zine?
What?
24.
24?
You called it special?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. We have someone here. They are here. The city employees, almost 40,000, have money invested in the deferred compensation plan, $2.8 billion, a lot of it managed by WAMU, Washington Mutual, which is now owned by someone else. We heard this in committee, and there's been a lot of concern because of Wall Street and the banks, IndyMac, and other institutions that are having some concerns and issues, and these city employees want to make sure that their money is secure, that whatever happens with the sale of Washington Mutual, this $2.8 billion of hard-earned money by city employees is protected for their future retirement. So if you can explain what safeguards are in place, is there any jeopardy on the money? Do we need to move the money? Is it FDIC? Is it secured by something? And all of the issues surrounding the security of those dollars. And I would ask the city employees, you all city employees, I assume? You're not. Two out of three are. The two members that are at the table, are you participating in the deferred comp plan? Yes. So your money is at risk too, or not at risk. So there's a self-interest for all of us, including many of my colleagues. So if you can give us some assurance or tell us what we need to do to make sure these dollars, $2.8 billion, are secure for future retirement. And I will say that the city employees that participate in deferred comp, those are dollars that the employees select to put into that fund, not taxpayers' dollars. This is dollars that the employees would receive. This is money that's not matched by the city. These are dollars that the employee earns, and they opt to put it into this deferred comp plan. So it's money that they could be spending. They elect to put it in for future retirement benefits. So if you could take it away and give us an explanation where we are on this issue of deferred comp in Washington Mutual and the whole issue of what we can do to safeguard and make sure it's secure. Take it away.
Certainly. I'm Mary Ann Keenum from the Personnel Department, and my colleagues with me today are Stephen Montagna, the Deferred Compensation Plan Manager from the Personnel Department, and also Susie Ardisher. She's one of our consultants in deferred compensation, and she's from Mercer Investment Consultants. J.P. Morgan, as you know, bought Washington Mutual. J.P. Morgan is a very strong and stable bank, and our participants and our plan is in a much better, secure, and a better position now. The change was completely seamless. There was no change in the rates of return, there was no disruption in service, and there was no disruption in access to funds. And that's what's most important. Our employees could still have access to their funds. Although the acquisition of Washington Mutual by J.P. Morgan resolves the immediate crisis, the board is taking further steps to improve the safety of our assets, and it has been deferred to the plan. It's the Investments Committee of the Deferred Compensation Plan, and they'll be working on some additional changes.
So you're saying there's no risk, there's no concern for the employees that have opted to participate in deferred comp plan. Everything's safe and secure, totally and completely, and there's no need to move that money to another institution.
Right. I mean, the assets that are currently held with J.P. Morgan Chase.
The $2.8 billion.
Right. Well, no. Those assets represent approximately 10% of
the $2.8 billion.
Right. The other assets would be held in various market investments. So those are not FDIC insured.
Those are what?
Those assets would not be FDIC insured.
But that's an option by the employee to select those investment opportunities.
Right. And we make very sure that all participants understand the risks of whatever particular investment choice they might be making.
And if they have questions, who do they contact?
They can talk to represent the local representatives that work for Great West. Great West has been contracted with to their role is to provide information to employees to make sure that they understand what the investment choices are, to help them make changes. And they have definitely been doing that. We've had lots of employees, lots of participants that have had questions. They've wanted to make some changes to their accounts, so we do all that we can to help them with that information and to help them do what they need to do so that they can feel comfortable with the money that they have in the plan.
So what investments are FDIC insured?
Only the investments that are currently held by J.P. Morgan Chase. So that's approximately $350 million.
And the rest of the investments that make up the $2.8 billion?
Right. The rest of the investments would generally be considered market investments. So that means those are primarily mutual funds, which means that the value of those funds can go up and down, and that would depend on, in general, whether the market's going up or down.
And the employees are aware of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Have any of those funds evaporated, or are they still
No. I mean, one of the things to understand about mutual funds is they this is not like investing in one individual company. Mutual fund managers take the money that's invested with them, and they will be investing in possibly hundreds of different companies. So when the market value goes, when the market value of any particular company that might be held goes down, that would be mitigated by the fact that particular fund would actually be holding hundreds of companies.
Okay.
And I think it's important to note that the City of Los Angeles Deferred Compensation Plan is probably in a stronger position if you want FDIC insurance than about 80% of the deferred compensation plans out there. We do have an FDIC insurance product that if employees wish, they can choose to put their money in that FDIC insurance product. And since it's a retirement plan, it is insured up to $250,000.
And from our Mercer representative, any comments from you on this matter?
No particular comments, but it's actually atypical. So you have a more safe option than what other government or deferred compensation plans are offering. So participants have the option to go into an FDIC insured product that will be covered up to $250,000, and then the excess is also supported by the local agency. And then the other investments, mutual funds, you can consider as a pooled vehicle. It's a portfolio of investments. The portfolio manager makes a decision on all underlying stocks to invest in a broad range of sectors. So even investing in a mutual fund is a diversified option. But typically, participants are receiving education and constant communication materials, and they're posted on the website they can easily access and retrieve. City of LA has a deferred compensation site that lists all the options, their descriptions, as well as you can check on performance and other types of information.
So before my motion was submitted, your group was observing and watching and making sure that things were working as they should.
Yes, sir.
So we didn't have to shake the trees to get things done. It was already being done.
We've been
And my
working on
concern was to assure the city employees that there's someone watching, unlike what we see happening in Washington, where it appears no one's watching.
There's a lot of us watching.
A lot of you watching. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Seeing there are no other speakers on the queue, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. I know Mr. Garcetti asked if we would hold 27 on the desk. Next item?
Next item is item 31, and that was called special by Councilmember Cardenas.
Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas? We will hold that on the desk for a moment. Next item?
Next item is 32, and that was called special by yourself. Do you wish to hold that as well?
Yes, thank you. Next item?
35 and 36 were called special for Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn? On item number 35, Ms. Hahn? Ms. Hahn, item 35.
Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
I would like to remove parcel 7. If without objection, I would just like to remove parcel 7. It's the old animal shelter site, and it's come to our attention that there might be something to work out with that, with a group that's looking to rescue animals. So I thought we could just remove it for now, see if we can negotiate something, and then if it doesn't work out, we'll get it back. But
which district is that in? Is that your district?
yes,
Okay.
it's in my district, parcel 7.
Parcel 7, okay.
And I'm sorry, for clarification, item 35 and 36 were to be taken up together, and I believe 35 was going to be received and filed because 36 has the more current ordinances on it.
Whatever. I'd like to remove parcel 7.
That will be the amendment there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have one public comment card on item 36, since we'll be taking those together. Mr. Sachs. Arnold Sachs. Item 36.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Arnold Sachs. Very interesting. Just very quickly, item 36 and 35, you have two city agencies looking into the sale of city property. So just to draw that out a little bit, I'm very, very still upset about the negotiations for the signage rights for the convention center that were awarded, it seems to me illegally, because the city was in a exclusive contract with AEG and ended up awarding the signage rights to the Los Angeles Convention, LACC, which is not AEG. But what city agencies came to the table to discuss the options for the city? What city agencies came forward and said, this property is worth this much money, this is what we should negotiate for? How did the city come up with an amount of $2 million for almost a $30 million property? Who was involved in negotiations for the signage rights at the convention center? It says here we have two city agencies acting on behalf of a $13 million property when they just let $30 million walk out the window.
Madam President, I don't think he's speaking on the item.
I'd like to point out to the city attorney that when that item came before the council, not one person mentioned LACC. Every communication in this council was regarding a contract with AEG and the city.
This item before us today is the sale of surplus property. If you wish to talk in public comment about that, you may, but this is on the sale of surplus property.
My point is that you had two agencies looking into this sale. There was no agencies looking into the sale of property for this convention center, and the city lost out on $30 million worth of benefits. And I'm just trying to find out why no agencies looked into that on behalf of the city.
Thank you. So items 35 and 36 are now before us with the amendment by Ms. Hahn on item 36. With no objection, that's a friendly amendment to that. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. We'll go to item number 27, and then we'll go to item 31. That's yours. Mr. Cardenas called a special for you. Mr. Garcetti, on item number 27.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And just briefly, I wanted to speak on this, colleagues, because whenever this comes up each year, it's one of the most important things that we do. DART is the Domestic Abuse Response Teams. Long before I was on the City Council, it was actually the first kind of public policy issue I worked on when these first emerged in the San Fernando Valley and became national models. Essentially, the number one call we still get, radio call for police, is domestic violence. And usually the average at a single address is 3 to 4 times we go back to the same addresses. So when you think from all the police time that is spent with the recurrence of domestic violence, and how police really aren't social workers, they do a heroic job often intervening and helping people in domestic violence situations, but they need to have trained social workers and advocates who can help take women and children and men in some cases out of domestic abusive environments. DART teams are just that. They are teams that roll out with our police officers and help us from having these addresses be repeat visits, and sometimes obviously escalating into worse and worse violence. We know that a woman is beaten every 15 seconds in this country. That domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women between the ages of 15 and 44 in the United States. We will continue funding with this resolution today of DART teams, and the goal was established by this council and by the police department to get a DART team in every single division in the city. And I would reiterate to the police department to work hard towards that goal and to work with this council to achieve that. When you compare the number of shelters that we have today, there are 3 times as many animal shelters in the United States as there are shelters for battered women and children. And so when we look at this problem of staggering proportions, Los Angeles does an amazing job of intervening where we do have these DART teams, but we need to keep that pressure up. As the Council's liaison to the Domestic Violence Task Force, I encourage you to continue to work with the advocates that you've appointed to that and look at each one of your police divisions and ask your captains, do we have a DART team working here? And if not, to work with us. We're happy to assist in trying to see what community groups can be out there and make those interventions so that women can have that assistance, so that families families can be taken to a better place and move on instead of cops returning time and time again, sometimes with the deepest tragedy. So I asked for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. And with that, Madam Clerk, if you could please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. And that item will go forthwith. Next item, Ms. Hahn on item number 31.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. This is about continued funding for a day labor site in the harbor area, and I'm just asking us to agree to continue funding this site for 8 months from August of this year through March of '09. This was the very first day labor site established in the city of Los Angeles 18 years ago. And, you know, people think this is always the government trying to impose on the business community, day labor sites. But this actually came from the community. This was a solution to a problem that plagues a lot of businesses and neighborhoods. There's people that need work, and there's employers who like to hire people to do work for a day or a week or a month. And this was a result of the community, the Harbor City, Harbor Gateway Chamber of Commerce, coming together and saying, let's provide a decent, organized place where the employers and the employees can meet and everybody is happy. Unfortunately, we had a major construction going on Vermont Avenue. It wiped out our previous day labor site, so really, for the last 2 years, when we knew it was coming, we've been trying to find an alternate site. It's not so easy to site day labor places these days, and we had to go back through working with the community, working with the chamber, working with all the neighborhoods to say, again, this is a good thing. These sites are well kept. They're an organized place. A lot of these day labor sites also have English as a second language, schools and tutoring going on. There's a lot of important positive things that happen at these day labor sites. But the most important thing is people are able to get a decent job and decent pay for a day's work. I think with these economic times, it's only going to get worse for people, and we're probably going to see more people that want to find a way to get work. So this is just to keep the funding going. I want to thank Harbor College. This site is closer to Harbor College, and I know the president of that college, Dr. Linda Spink, had some issues, but we've really worked through those, and I appreciate her cooperation in knowing that this is a solution to a problem that's existed for over 20 years. So thanks for your support to continue the funding for this site. How was that?
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. If there's no other speakers, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on this item and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 33, called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
And thank you to everybody who was waiting here patiently on that item. We appreciate your presence. This next one is called special by Councilwoman Gruhl, and I'd like to recognize her at this time.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I wanted to highlight on this item that is before us, and it was both in transportation and Plum. And it was asking about the collection and expenditure of transportation mitigation fees. As we all know that a lot of times the issues with development is related to traffic and how we deal with that in those communities. And we hear that as elected officials on a consistent basis. Currently, we require transportation mitigation measures to be implemented and fees to be collected. However, there are many restrictions on these that stymie the process for implementation, and as a result, oftentimes we may be losing money in that instance. This motion asks for the process to be reviewed so that we might actually mitigate traffic and not just talk about it. And I appreciate Mr. Reyes moving this forward through his committee as well, because we think it is important. And it came up in the San Fernando Valley where we had $5 million for mitigation fees, and there were challenges on our ability to spend it based on some of the restrictions. And so this asks for that report back, and we look forward to DOT and planning to to come back and give us an update. I just wanted to highlight it because it is a deep concern to the public. So I would ask for an aye vote on that item. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes is our next speaker. After that, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank Wendy for your leadership in moving this item as well. I just want to be very specific in the language. It says that it should move through the city process, and I want to be very clear that it goes back to not only the Transportation Committee but Plum Committee. I know in the past sometimes we get managers of some of our departments say, well, it didn't say we had to go back to committee. So be very clear that it come back to land use and management as well. But I think what's critical is this begins to open up that process where perhaps we can stimulate more confidence in our communities and start actually looking at how we improve our infrastructure as we promote development in the city and create a stronger nexus between these impositions, as some might see it, with improvements that's darnely needed. So from that point of view, ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Rosendahl.
What I like about the motion, frankly, is just raising the whole issue about mitigating monies. What we really need overall is any mitigating monies put in any development project fund needs to have a tickler file to see if it's been used or not used. If it's been used, how has it been used? How does its cumulative effect on other developments happen? And then, obviously, if it isn't being used and shouldn't be used, it should obviously go back to the beginning where it all started. But it's the bigger issue of tying, as Mr. Reyes was saying in the Plum Committee, tying mitigating monies back to real projects with real timetables and real deadlines, and then we go through a process of knowing where we stand with them. In my district, fortunately, some of those monies that were committed within a 2-mile radius of different projects are being spent, and we're drilling down and we're moving forward, actually with a lot of the left-hand turn signals and a lot of the synchronization of lights and the widening of streets, which was something I was quickly for as soon as I got in office. And we're watching that money being used effectively within the system of our Department of Transportation. But the key question is, do we keep good records? And are we following through with timetables? So that's why I stand up and appreciate what Wendy Greuel put before us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. And with that, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on this item and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 43, called special by Councilmember Greuel.
Ms. Greuel on item 43.
Thank you, and I will be brief. Colleagues, this item before us is on bicycle sharing, and many of you in this room have supported the importance of utilizing bicycles in our city. And due to the high cost of fuel prices and the efficiencies of difficulties of traveling by car, many people have turned to bicycles. And the estimates that we see is there's about a 25% increase in bicycling in Los Angeles. Bike stores have seen an increase in sales. I know just anecdotally, driving down the street, I've seen more bicycles than ever before. Here in the city, we need to do everything we can to support different modes of travel and transportation and to get people out of their cars. We are updating our bicycle plan. We are updating our bicycle advisory committee, Mr. Reyes' motion that we heard just a week or so ago. And we're working in pilot programs in Mr. Garcetti's district on Sharrows on city streets. As well. We have a long ways to go to be a bicycle city, and I heard in our committee, as Mr. Rosendahl was there as well, and Mr. Alarcon, that there are a lot of people who are part of the advisory committee or part of this countywide bicycle coalition who want to make sure that not only we encourage people to take bicycles to work, but that we create an environment that is safe for them. And that before we begin too expansive of a program to ensure that bicyclists can feel safe on the streets of Los Angeles. And so when I was in Colorado, and saw the many bicycles that were provided for that event, for people to utilize on special events. I think it's demonstrated that there are options, whether it be for special events or pilot areas, that we can encourage bicycle sharing here in the city of Los Angeles. All too often people get off the subway or the Dash bus or location, and it's a longer ways to walk than they would like, and wouldn't it be great to have bicycle sharing in the city of Los Angeles? So we're asking in this document before you today for the department to issue an RFI to learn about the feasibility of having a bike sharing program in the city of Los Angeles. We think it's about time. We think it's a great part of our overall review of our bicycle strategic plan here in the city of Los Angeles, and to ensure that we create a safer environment. And so I would ask for an aye vote today. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes is next, and Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Council President. It's a natural that when our chair of transportation speaks on these issues, that there's a direct relationship with our land use patterns. So I appreciate these opportunities. You know, colleagues, back in December 2007, we put forth a motion that was seconded by Bill Rosendahl, and you all supported me. And it was to direct the planning department and the LADOT to put together a new bicycle plan as part of the transportation element. So the great work that's being done by Councilmember Grewal and Rosendahl and Garcetti falls right in line with these types of requests. But colleagues, we also have to be cognizant that we're working with a crew of about 3 individuals, maybe 4. Why don't you come on up? And it is a issue that we need to address in the next few years as to how we strengthen the capacity of DOT staff as well as planning staff to put forth these recommendations. For example, we wanted to establish back in December bicycle boulevards as a traffic calming technique to serve and connect our neighborhoods. We wanted road modifications to make streets more efficient and safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. We asked for bicycle stations that offer fast and expensive ways for residents to rent a bicycle and get from point A to point B for drop-off locations. We wanted to design streets to create safe access for motorists, pedestrians, and people of all abilities, and increase the number of bicycle racks citywide. So when we include these into our community plans, we wanted to have this workshop in District 1 as a model, or should I say a demonstration project, because we knew to go citywide would have been to put too much on the staff, but I understand other districts would also like the same type of analysis. So can you introduce yourself at the table? I'm not running out of time, but...
This is Michelle Mallory, Senior Bicycle Coordinator with the Department of Transportation.
Michael Weno, I'm a Senior Transportation Engineer with DOT.
Are you seeing any more connectivity with the CRA or the other departments that have an impact on our public right-of-ways? Is there any more dialogue being intensified?
It's actually gotten a lot better than it has been during the last few years, and bikes are certainly becoming very popular and a part of the mix. We actually just looked at some plans yesterday to include a bike facility in a CRA project. We have some recommendations and maybe some changes to how they're doing it, but they're coming to us and starting to talk about how they can integrate bikeways into the specific projects.
Is the MTA postured itself in any way that speaks to raising the priority of our bicycle plans and or the directives that were made back in December regarding these improvements?
I wouldn't say that we're seeing a huge level of excitement about bicycling from the MTA. As a matter of fact, we're hearing that they're going to be a little tougher on their rules and regulations regarding bicycles and transit. They have a rule that doesn't allow bicycles on the trains during peak hours. They have very loosely enforced that, meaning they recognize that working folks need to be able to get on those trains, and they've let them on the trains during peak hour. Rumor is they are going to start removing people from the trains. We also have been encouraging Metro through their technical advisory committee to upgrade their buses to include a triple bicycle rack rather than a double bicycle rack, and there's been a lot of resistance to doing that as well. So While there is certainly some funding available through Metro, there hasn't been an increase, nor is there an increase in real support for bicycling through the agency.
So it just seems to me that with the instruction on item 43, under Councilor Grewal and Garcetti's motion, we're asking for a report back with a request for information on a bicycle sharing program. After holding discussion with the bicycle community and bicycle advisory committee, should we have the MTA there, since they are a significant link to our transportation infrastructure?
Well, we certainly will want to have them involved, and we will be working with them on the development of the bicycle plan. As a matter of fact, they have a bicycle program manager who was on our interview team for the bicycle plan. She will actually approve our plan that makes it acceptable for funding opportunities. So their bicycle staff will work with us and can work on that. As an agency, they could do a lot more to help us.
Councilman Grewal, as a friendly amendment, can we request the MTA to have their staff brief us here in this council body as to what they're doing with the bicycle plan, how they're going to support us? We have 4 officials on their board, and we should send a strong signal that we take it seriously. If they're going to be curtailing it, why are they going to do that? If we're going to be investing in the bicycle plan and these improvements, we should let them know how serious we are as a city.
Wholeheartedly agree, and because we recently asked them to increase the number of bikes they could have on some of the buses, and really been so. I accept your very friendly amendment.
Perhaps we can designate a time or have them report to us as a body, because I believe there are several districts who are very anxious and would like to see these kinds of bicycle roadway improvements that will make it safer for bicyclists. So thank you, Councilor Grewal, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, and I certainly applaud what my seatmate just said. Obviously, we're all connected, and the bicyclist doesn't know if they're in the city of LA or they're in an MTA area, or is it an MTA area that's this or that and so on. They need a connection of it all. And we're at the age now, obviously, where a bicycle is not only a pleasure sporting thing, but can truly be a mode of transportation as our gridlock continues, and also it's, from a health standpoint, good for the bicycle rider as well as it is for the air quality, that they're not just polluting the air. So it's a big deal. As you and I both know, and I'm glad Mr. Reyes asked you to come up, Michelle, is the city needs to know we have a bicycle coordinator. There you are, and you've been at it for 15 years. I want to thank you for your support and help in our Mandeville Canyon situation as we're trying to work that out. We are moving forward with that. The commissioner went up there, Paula Daniels, and my staff and the police, and we're trying to figure out how to make Mandeville Canyon more safe. One of the things we have to look at is safety of the bicycle rider. And that is my biggest issue, is their safety and their Bill of Rights. I know Ms. Grewal and I have been talking about the Bicyclist Bill of Rights, and we're looking forward to that coming before the committee and the council. Bicyclists come up to me every day and ask me, where are you with the Bicycle Bill of Rights? But this particular motion, and I just want to make sure we hear from you what it means to you. The motion basically says information on a bicycle sharing program. What does that mean to you?
It means a program where we would allow people who actually didn't bring a bike or don't have a bike to go and check one out, ride it to a particular location, leave it, and then someone else could come and check it out and do the same sort of thing. It's almost like, probably the closest thing to it that we have is a cart rental at LAX. You know, when you pick up your baggage, you throw your credit card in there, you put some change in there, you get a card. It's a very similar sort of concept that's been well received in Paris.
And I think it's a brilliant idea, and we obviously could go forward with that once you come back with the report. Also, we need more bicycle racks for people. How does that fit in with this?
Well, we currently have 3,000. It would be different and separate from this motion and what we're doing. We have 3,000 inverted U bicycle racks on the city streets now. We're doing a lot with bicycle parking. If a citizen wanted to request a bicycle rack, they go on our website, bicyclela.org, and there's a spot to electronically request one. We field check them and essentially put them in. They're primarily for business districts, and we're working with a number of other folks to get racks in various locations throughout the city.
And we're looking at those locations to be where we have a light rail or a metro bus lane or a subway, one of these connecting points where they could put their bike when they get on that mass transit?
It's a little different from the other program. That program is primarily geared towards business districts to get people to ride their bikes in this district and provide additional parking. We are working with Metro on a bike parking program at their stations, and we've taken one of our grants and we're integrating it with Metro, and they're going to be providing some more additional bike parking using our funding at their stations.
And would you, again, for the viewer watching this on Channel 35, your website, so people know how to connect to you, which bicyclists know how to connect through the internet, but everybody needs to know they can connect through you as well.
It's at www.bicyclela.org.
Great, great. Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, the switch is on the... Sorry.
Mr. Garcetti.
Should give me the controls. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you as well, Ms. Gruhl, for this. This is really, really exciting, and I know we had the chance to chat about this. Another Angelino, who shares my same last name, has been spending a lot of time in Paris and has a book that's coming out, actually, of photography this December of Parisian women on bicycles because of the free bicycle system. Point of order, Mr. My dad, because I think the free bicycle system in Paris has changed people's impression of what bicycling is about, that you don't always have to be in spandex and you don't have to be sweating. You can look as glamorous as a Parisian woman and be on a bicycle. So he's been standing on the corners taking photos. But anyway, that's another issue. I think, too, one of the interesting things, he came back and as part of the book launch, he's been meeting with cities of Long Beach and in Santa Monica, but I've been pushing him here towards Los Angeles, and I know with the Bicycle Coalition, he's had a number of meetings with Jennifer Klausner and others to see what could be done here. We're such a spread out city that it's intimidating, but I think there are places where it makes a lot of sense, perhaps in our more compact areas in Hollywood and Century City and parts of San Fernando Valley along Ventura Boulevard, where we could do this. But in a tight budget time, colleagues, too, I mean, the way this was paid for in Paris was street-level advertising at the bicycle kiosks, which Viacom Ducos, which does our street furniture, did as well. So as we do that, and I know right now with everything that's going on with our billboard issues and problems, we'll have to look creatively about whether that can be a way to fund things. But I think as much as we can look at private sector involvement in this, we could really have something that works. And I'd like to see it as much as we can explore linking into the rail that we have, because that's an ideal place, obviously, for people to get off buses and to get off of trains and to be able to get right on bikes that are free for their use. So I'm very excited about this. Thank you, Ms. Gruhl, for being such a great bicycle advocate, and for our continuing city staff that continues to push us to be bipedal in more ways than one. So with that, I urge your support on this as well, and I will continue to do my part to see if these pictures and these photographs from the Garcetti family can help promote it in Los Angeles and not just around.
Mr. Zine?
Thank you. My question deals with licensing. I know there's many young people that ride bicycles, and it reminds me of my young brother who's now a senior citizen. He was involved in a bicycle crash when he was a youngster. He didn't have any identification. Do we still have licensing with the police department, or is there a licensing? Because what happens is someone is involved in a collision, a young person doesn't have a driver's license, police respond, they have an individual there, they may be knocked unconscious. Who do they notify? How do they get notification? And I don't really see us pushing, as we did in the past, bicycle licensing, which was done Saturday at the police station. Is there anything about licensing which you can check that number, find out who the relatives are, et cetera? Is there anything in place for that?
Yes and no. Per the municipal code, the city does still have a bicycle licensing ordinance. Bicycle licenses are obtained by patrons through one of two ways. Either they are sold by the bicycle vendor at the point of purchase, which we understand is rarely done now, or they are sold by your local police division. There is not a set date or set time to get a license, and it's our understanding a number of police divisions are unable to sell licenses at their locations. So the program has been somewhat dormant for a number of years. Staff has made a report and recommendation to T Committee that has been on hold, Transportation Committee. So Currently, the Bicycle Advisory Committee does not support the licensing program and would like to address identification of children in a different manner rather than bicycle licensing.
How do they recommend identifying 10 or 12 or 13-year-old with identification?
There are a couple ways. We could work with LAUSD to develop some sort of program through them that would be a helmet, a sticker or something that goes within a helmet to be able to do that. Something we've discussed a little bit. At one point, LAUSD was interested in taking on the licensing program. We don't know if that is still the case, but it's something that's been on the table and off the table for a number of years now.
Why can't we make the retailer at the time of sale, the point of sale, as we do with alarm permits now, where they have to obtain, I think it's $3 if I'm not mistaken, unless it's gone up.
That's correct.
$3, tack that on to the purchase of the bicycle and have them responsible for having that bike sold with a license attached. And now we can capture that, because I know that young folks don't carry identification, and an incident does occur. They do get in crashes with those bikes, and the police and the hospital personnel throw their hands up. How are they going to notify someone? They got to go to the court and get a judge to issue a warrant. There's got to be a better way. I was on the Bicycle Advisory Committee many years ago with Tom Bradley, appointed. That was my first venture into politics. We used to meet over at the Water and Power Building, and that was a long, long time ago. But I've always thought Alex Baum, he was the chairperson. I think he's still the chairperson of that.
Still the chair.
So how do we, for the safety of the people, because many people who ride bicycles don't carry identification, whether they're youngsters or adults. It's just not sometimes practical. How do we bring that back into the fold? If we got an ordinance that says you have to have a license, and it's all part of the safety aspect, and I want to tie this into what we're talking about now, how do you recommend, if the Bicycle Advisory is against it, to have that safeguard in there for the people who may get involved in something? And it's also recovery. The police stop someone on the bicycle, they run that number and find out if it's a stolen bicycle or not. How do we pull that together?
Well, there are a number of issues. Bicycle licensing, to make the bicycle licensing program active again in the city, we'd need to do two things. First of all, we would need to have a records and information segment of LAPD be very diligent in updating the database. A few years ago, they did create a new database for establishment of the records, but I'm not sure where they are in personnel and being able to, and I certainly can't speak for LAPD on this, on being able to have that data available. For instance, if we have a child who has purchased a bicycle within a month, is that record going to be available when the collision occurs, and will the officer on the street be able to identify that child based on that license? So we have to make sure that happens first and foremost. And the theft is certainly something we'd like to see happen. We expect bicycle theft will probably go up in the city as use occurs. Right now we're not having a big problem, but it's certainly going to happen as we have more and more bikes out on the city streets. The campus of UC Davis has the best bicycle licensing program in the state right now. They capture freshmen as they come in and require licensing at the point of purchase, or at the point that the freshman goes through freshman orientation. They have a number of students updating their databases, and they have recovered bicycles that were stolen in the middle of the night in somebody's truck because they were able to update all of that. The City of Los Angeles is not UC Davis. I'm not to say that we can't do that, but it is going to take several $100,000 to update the program and make it functional again. So it's something we can look at doing. It may be better to address the identification of children in another way with LAUSD, and we can certainly do that. I carry ID. I have a sticker on my helmet that does have my name and information in it. So that I think there are other ways to do it, but we could address bicycle licensing, but we need to make a concerted effort to do it. The City of Long Beach, for example, doesn't have licensing in their police departments. They have deferred their licensing to fire. I believe it's the second Saturday of every month between the hours of 9 and noon, if I recall correctly. They do it at all the firehouses. I live in Long Beach. I tested the system there, and it does work. You can show up and do that sort of thing. Fire's a little different because they're in their houses every day for the most part, and that was one of the recommendations we addressed looking at a number of years ago. So there are ways to update and readdress the program. There are also ways to address child identification on bicycles as well.
Well, I know that we used to do it with Explorers. On a Saturday morning, Explorers would be at the police station, and they would be trained, document the information, collect the $3. Now, I'm surprised it's still $3 for that license, but that's the way it is. But there was a process every Saturday, or a desk officer would do it other times. But it seems that the whole program has been washed away, and with the popularity of bicycles, as you mentioned, theft will go up, a lot of young people riding bicycles, and it leaves the public safety personnel throwing their hands up and they're trying to notify someone and trying to make a connection.
They are.
So how do we then, through your sponsorship as the coordinator citywide, bring about something to make this happen through the Transportation Committee or through the Transportation Commission, or somehow do something to plug this gap?
What I could do at this point is circulate the staff report that was submitted last year that would update you on, or work with one of your deputies on this to provide some more background information on how things are going forward. You're correct, the Explorers were doing bicycle licensing at one point. There was some problem with that, and that was disbanded citywide. I also understand the numbers of Explorers are way down from what they were once upon a time, so it's a little different city than it was a few years ago. It is, again, something that we can investigate doing or moving forward, but it is going to be a commitment of resources to revive the program completely and or maybe move it to a different department functionally throughout the city. One other thing you should know, the reason the program is $3 and will probably never be a moneymaker in the city, it will be a service, not a source of revenue for the city. The state law dictates some of the way we do this. For instance, state law dictates that it's $3. It's in the California Vehicle Code. There's been no effort to change that and probably will not. So unless there's a major change at the state level, it'll stay at $3.
But there is a law that says in the city of LA you have to have a bicycle license, so someone could be cited for not having a bicycle license.
Absolutely, and we understand that happens on occasion. California Vehicle Code allows a municipality to develop a program, and that's what the city's done. In the 60s, they developed an ordinance that at the time was enforced by a crew of police officers. We understand 6 officers worked the program at that time, and I remember, well, I didn't live in the city at the time. I was in California, and local police did a bicycle rodeo and put a license on my bike, and I think that's what happened here as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President's pushing me off on this. Thank you. I'll take him for a ride on my Harley next time.
Absolutely.
Just on a side note, I've been asked to have number 9 go forthwith by the city attorney's office.
Okay.
Item 9.
Objection.
Thank you. So hopefully we can get something done.
Yeah, have one of your deputies contact me. We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection. We have Mr. Labange, Mr. Alarcon, and then Mr. Reyes. Mr. Labange.
Yeah, thank you very much. On this issue here, I want a friendly amendment that you looked at working with MTA, every MTA site, that you create some type of bike facility at every MTA subway station, and may I add, light rail station in the city of Los Angeles. There's no reason, there's a lot of space there that's underutilized, and to create a bike shop, if you will, and allow entrepreneurship to take forth in this, it would be worthy of that. I don't know if we have it yet, but I've seen this in other cities. They have this. It's very popular in Berlin and Paris, and we know how those cities have grown and their densities are different than we are at this point here, but it's worth looking into. But certainly getting a bike shop at every MTA subway station. You have your MTA days. We were out there, Miss Gruhl, there at the Universal City, and they had a little temporary bike shop. Put them there all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're going to get there, put them there. Put more bike racks that look like bike rats. You know, make bike racks look like bike racks that are bike racks. Not necessarily things that people don't understand, but need more bike racks. I haven't seen your pen working, Michelle. I do admire you a lot, Michelle Mowry.
I
more
never
bike
forget
racks.
anything you ask of me, Councilman
Okay.
Labange.
Thank you very much, and charge ahead and ride safe.
Okay.
Mr. Alarcon.
Members, I guess it was last year I was driving down Laurel Canyon, and right at a point, right across from Mervyn's in Tony's district, there's a jet out, an unimproved street, and a bicycle rider had just been struck by a car. As I pulled up, he was laying on the street, and you know, I helped him to wait for the ambulance and everything. But as he was boarding the ambulance, it struck me that his bike was laying there, and I asked the police officers, well, what happens to his bike? And of course they knew who I was, so they said, well, you know what, we'll take it to the station. But otherwise, this man who obviously didn't have a lot of resources and was riding his bike to and from work, you know, he would have lost his bike, which might mean he loses his source of income. And not to mention, he's carted off to the hospital and probably would not be able to work for quite some time. But it just didn't dawn on me, I've known for many years, but it just struck me again how inadequate this city is in terms of its bicycle infrastructure. And it also, in this particular case, pointed out to me how important the bicycle infrastructure is for people who need to work. That we keep talking about housing, jobs balance, and putting housing where the jobs are and jobs where the housing is. But one of the best ways to do that is to have a well-defined bicycling infrastructure that is not just intended to help those who want to get healthy and have recreational use, but is intended for people in everyday use in an economy where gas prices are so high and where unemployment rate is higher than in our time in office, and where people need alternative forms of transportation to be able to survive. It just seems to me we have to be much more creative and focus much more attention on our bicycle infrastructure. So while I agree that there is so much of a lagging in terms of what we need, that bicycle sharing in and of itself is not going to have great impact, nor are we in a position to design the full-out program. I absolutely believe that we can identify specific methods of using sharing in specific locations or on specific projects or on specific lines so that we can move toward a city that is much more bicycle friendly, particularly for those who will be riding bikes to work. And so I urge you but I hope that it comes back with a positive attitude, not a negative attitude that we're not ready for this, so let's not do anything. Let's find out what we can do, even if it's very small, and then grow it. And I believe that we can do a far better job than we have in the last 50 years. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate what Councilman Alarcon has just said, and I want to be very specific on my questions. And my only hesitation in asking this is because I know how overwhelmed you are. But in terms of the planning department and DOT, in the community plan process, are we looking at streets to do the types of things that Councilman Alarcon is talking about, Councilman Gruhl and Councilman Garcetti and LaBonge, all the council members are saying the same thing. But it means nothing. We have no traction. There's no change at the street level. Are the community plans doing that? Is the planning department and yourselves getting to a place where we're actually identifying roadways and streets to actually create these physical changes? Please hold my time.
Yeah, the new plan, we're addressing this on a number of levels, and community plans is one of the things we're just starting to talk about. Mike and I just left a meeting with the consultant, Alta Planning and Design and Citywide Planning, where the consultant rolled out a draft of the roadway map. What we're really doing in this next plan, we've been, the last 15 years, the current bike plan was adopted in '96, but we've been looking at the very large streets that are built out, that are full of cars, that we haven't had the ability to get a whole lot of facilities on. We're looking at continuing the integration of the old facilities that we're looking at in that old plan, but the new plan is really looking at collector streets, larger than a residential street, less volumes, less cars, less traffic, and lower speeds than the others, and we're looking at a network of those. And for the first time, we have the opportunity to really connect all the dots and to get people on streets that they feel more comfortable and safer about. And that's what we're really doing that. Now, in the community plans, with the citywide planners, we've done a couple workshops, and we're looking at more with the citywide planners to talk about how we integrate the overall plan into the community plans and looking at key north, south, east, west corridors to connect within those plans. So this is the first time since I've been here, in the last 10 years, that we really have an integrated working relationship with planning. We're trying to make all that happen.
You know, we did the LA River Master Plan. It took us 3 years, but it was very methodical. We staged it in such a way we have input. We created a plan. Now we're bringing resources in, and we're beginning to see those changes. The river corridor is one corridor that connects the San Fernando Valley all the way to downtown. I mean, in some ways, it can be like that bicycle thoroughfare. That one corridor that literally provides not only recreational but functional, daily purpose to get from point A to point B without getting hit by a car. Is the river plan complementing, and are you looking at that bicycle superhighway, if you will? And I hate to say that because people think of cement and really bland and sterile thoroughfares, but are we making that a priority?
Certainly. The LA River Bike Path has been probably
Please hold my time.
one of the number one priorities in the Bikeway Group for a number of years. We have 6 miles in. We'll go to construction next year on another 2 miles. We've been present and participating on the River Revitalization Plan and the Technical Advisory Committee citywide, and it'll continue to stay on it. It's probably one of our biggest and not best, but best opportunities to be able to reach a very large segment of the city through that facility. The lower element of the Los Angeles River connects the lower city. It's going to be very difficult getting through downtown, and we'll do that. But I ride Los Angeles River about 2/3 of the way to work on Monday mornings. I know how it can work for us.
Great. And last question. In my December 2007 motion, we asked for a public meeting regarding these improvements. Are we any closer of getting to that public meeting?
Public meetings for the bicycle master plan?
Plan a public workshop in District 1?
We've had the first round of public meetings to gather input for the consultant team to begin work on the policy and the on-street document. We're going to take that back to the public. Looks like it now will be early December. We haven't figured out a way to get around the Thanksgiving holiday, so it'll probably be the first week of December.
Okay. And again, I know you're doing this with one arm and not enough staff, and I applaud your
We'll
hard
take some more
efforts.
staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cardenas for announcement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to announce my recusal on item number 56, which is consistent with the letter that I have into the city clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item called special, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 45. That was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl, and there is an amending motion that has been distributed.
Mr. Rosendahl called special.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, Mr. Zine has seconded this motion, and Ms. Hahn has as well. Some of you might remember that in May of 2005, there was a death of a member of the airport police that took place on Lincoln Boulevard between La Tierra and Sepulveda. That's that stretch of highway. As you go to LAX, you look to the right and you see the airport. Well, if you turn to the right now, you'll see a memorial that is in memory of Tommy Scott. Tommy Scott was an incredible young man. You know, he was part of the airport police since October of 2001 until April 29th, 2005. He served as a face of the airport police, often giving interviews and ride-alongs for the media. He also worked in the VIP section, and he was a very positive, wonderful human being. He also served as a field training officer. Unfortunately, he gave his ultimate life while enforcing the anti-terrorist mission on the perimeter of the airport. He left behind his father, Hubert Scott Sr., his stepmother, Joan Scott, and a brother, Hubert Scott Jr. And for me, it was the first memorial that I played a role in as an elected official. And it was a very heart-wrenching experience to be there with his mother and his father and his brother and hundreds of family members and friends. And, of course, the entire airport police group were there. And we gave him the best kind of ceremonial send-off that we can give one another. And so we want to name a piece of the street in memory of him. It is a Caltrans issue. We passed the motion, and we hope Caltrans will consider this as part of their process. And we'd like your support. Chief Butts is the new head there, and all of his leadership team have been focusing on these kinds of issues. And one of the things I'm most grateful for is the training of the airport police at the LAPD Academy, so everybody is really more equipped in dealing with situations which he was dealing with. But we know he's resting in peace, and we'd like in his memory to name a section of the street after him. And I would love for our officer here, who's acting on behalf of us all, police William Thompson, Acting Chief, to just say a comment or two before we vote.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of the Airport Police, I'm here today in place of Director Butts and Chief Centeno, who are out of town on a business conference. And I'm also here for our leader, Executive Director Gina Marie Lindsay, as well. Tommy Scott was a beloved member of the Airport Police, and this fine gift and gesture that this City Council is making, and I thank Councilman Rosendahl, Zine, and Councilman Hahn, City Council, and the Mayor. This gesture, this gift will be a fine tribute to the memory of Tommy Scott. He died a tragic death, and his memory is still alive daily at the Airport Police, and we see it from roll calls to end of watch, how his memory still resonates in the Airport Police. So we thank you for that.
And thank you, Chief, for coming up and saying that. And colleagues, many of us know the Airport Police firsthand and the incredible service they provide for all of us. And I hear still stories about what a great guy he was. So I ask for your unanimous support in this action that we want to take. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn is our next speaker.
Thank you. Well, I certainly just want to rise and say this is absolutely the right thing that we do, and I want to thank Councilmember Rosendahl for bringing this forward. This is right. This is fitting that we take a portion of that boulevard and of Lincoln Boulevard and name it Officer Tommy Scott Square. We're going to have a sign that's erected so that all those who pass by will know that his memory, particularly his bravery and his courage, will be remembered. What he did that day was certainly a very courageous thing. It took a lot of bravery. He actually tried to stop a carjacking that was going on and lost his life doing that, all the while protecting LAX. And he was, as was said, such a fine officer, and he really earned the respect and the admiration of his peers, particularly with his friendly disposition. Many people tell me Tommy always had a smile on his face. He was always welcoming. He had a great knowledge of airport operations. He really was the consummate airport police officer. He was the first airport police officer to lose his life in the line of duty. So it was a very, very tragic situation. I went back to Washington, D.C. during the National Week of Police Officer Awareness, where there is a memorial back there, and it was right after he had been killed, and his family was there, his father was there, and it was a very moving tribute to him as well, along with all the fallen police officers in this country. The airport police officers are a great law enforcement agency. You are charged with protecting the welfare of not only the traveling public, but really just of the whole entity of LA International Airport. Your job, particularly since 9/11, has been more difficult. It has been more trying and stressful, and yet you have all served this city with such distinction. In fact, you've had national recognition as being one of the leading law enforcement agencies in the country, and other airports have modeled their airport law enforcement agencies after ours. So we thank you on a daily basis for what you do, but this will be a way that we will honor the memory and the courage of Officer Tommy Scott, but in a way we'll be remembering that all the officers' bravery and courage is something that we should continually notice, recognize, and more importantly, we should appreciate, and we owe you all a great debt of gratitude.
Thank you very much. Mr. LaBonge.
Rise in memory of Officer Tommy Scott. I met his parents, visited his parents after the funeral, and God bless his memory, and this is the right thing to do, and I thank all involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge. With that, let's go ahead and make this action official. If we'll please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you, and we will send that forthwith. Thank you, Chief, for being here very much. 40 and 41, Mr. Zine would like to move forthwith. If there's no objection, we'll move both of those. Thank you very much, Mr. Zine.
Thank you.
Next item called special, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 48, and that was called special for cards.
Okay. Arnold Sachs is our speaker on number 48. Okay. I believe that there's 1 minute left.
Yes, good afternoon, Arnold
afternoon.
Sachs. Thank you very much. I'd just like to point out on two of these special events. The Dodgers special event, $6,000. When the city was discussing the idea of having a shuttle for the games, and they brought the Dodgers representatives in to talk about assisting in the cost for shuttling their fans from Union Station to the Dodger Stadium. The answer was an emphatic no. It's not their responsibility. So all of a sudden, the city now is going to turn around and give them $6,000 worth of city services while the city covers a shuttle is just remarkable. I'd also like to point out that you have another item, an AIDS walk on Friday. Is it the 17th of October? It's a Friday. On behalf of the Jewish community, like their complaints about the Patriots Day parade, I'd like to put in a complaint that it'll interfere with Sabbath services by having this walk on a Friday afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll close our public comment on that item. If we can please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item 53, and that was called special for cards as well.
Okay, item 53 is before us. We have one card. Arthur Hansen. Thank you for your patience, sir, and good afternoon.
Yes, just recently, the Federal District Court complained about fees that are awarded in the Kern County versus City of Los Angeles issue, trying the attorneys overcharging. At present, a friend of mine who is presently litigating the City of Los Angeles for harassment and discrimination noticed that the city attorney was going through unnecessary procedures as per his attorney and per his own objection.
Mr. President, I don't think he's addressing the issue that's on the agenda.
Okay, this is about the Country Club interim control ordinance?
And in the past, a friend of mine who is an attorney stated that the city made a person run through a whole bunch of hoops. Now, if the city wasn't wasting their time in the city attorney's office, they could probably do this job without having to hire outside counsel. They need to increase their efficiency so they don't have to go out.
This actually doesn't concern the city attorney. This is an interim control ordinance having to do with planning and zoning in the Country Club Park area. So,
the wrong one.
Okay. If you have any comments about that, we'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I'll have to rule it out of order. But is there anything on that?
Ruling you're living by the letter of the law, but not by the intent. The intent of the law is to get the ordinance or whatever it is taken care of in 6 months. This goes from 2006. It should, and it's adverse to the governmental interest of getting business done within the city of Los Angeles. People are out there in abeyance, not knowing what they want to do. They can't plan because of this interim ordinance. It either needs to be finalized or not renewed. It's been too long.
Thank you, sir. And if you have any specific questions, we'll see if the city clerk can help you with any of your particular issues with this interim control ordinance. Thank you. We'll close the public comment. If we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There's excuse on the desk. Councilmember Parks requests to be excused Friday, October 3rd for personal business that meets council policy.
Okay, he is excused.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused Friday, October 31st to leave at 11:45 for personal business that also meets council policy.
He is excused.
And Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused December 9th to leave at 11 a.m. for city business that meets council policy.
Okay, he is excused as well.
And that clears the desk for closed session.
All right, we will now, in accordance with California state law, go into closed session to discuss two legal matters that are before the city. We will come back into open session if any open session vote is required as well, and we'll come back to close out the meeting. So we will be back shortly. Thank you. If we could please clear the room. if we can take up, welcome back, we're on item 55.
And that's payment of attorney's fees in the case entitled League of Residential Neighborhood Advocates et al. Versus City of LA, and that's in the amount of $116,319.90 plus interest not to exceed $5,000.
Okay. Go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved.
And that clears the desk.
All right. Do we have any business announcements? Folks, committee meeting times, anything? If not, can I ask everybody to please rise for our adjourning motions? Before that, Mr. Zine? Yes, you've got something in your hand.
Announcement. This is brought to me by Brian Perry from my office, a major Dodger fan, that 3 o'clock this afternoon, the Dodgers, Chicago. 100 years, Chicago has never gone to the big title, while the Dodgers have. No championship in 100 years, but the Dodgers have. So we want to remind everyone that they'll be back here on Saturday. The Dodgers, hopefully they'll make the series and make LA proud, the McCord family, Mr. Sunken. So go Dodgers today.
Do it for Howard?
Do it for Howard Sunken.
Come on.
He'll like the bonus. I'm sure he'll appreciate the bonus he'll receive.
All right. Since we started on this side, let's go around this side. Mr. Reyes, come around this way.
Announcements?
No, for adjourning motions, Mr. Reyes.
Well, first I want to thank Councilor Zine for that great declaration, but you're fine. But adjourning motions, colleagues, with a heavy heart, announced Dr. Dionisio Morales, founder of the Mexican American Opportunity Foundation. We had the honor and privilege of joining with the mayor earlier this month here to honor Dr. Dionisio Morales as part of the 2008 Latino Heritage Month celebration. Dr. Morales, activist and founder of the Mexican American Opportunity Foundation, MAOF, died Wednesday, September 24th in Montebello, California from complications due to kidney failure. Dr. Morales was 89, was laid to rest yesterday in Pico Rivera. Born October 9th, 1918 in Yuma, Arizona, Dr. Morales was the son of Mexican immigrants who later moved to California. Dr. Morales later graduated from Moore Park High School in Ventura County and University of California, Santa Barbara. As a teenager, Dr. Morales felt the painful sting of discrimination. This experience led him on a lifelong pursuit of justice and equality, championing the rights of those discriminated against. Known throughout the Latino community as an urban Cesar Chavez for his political activism, Dr. Morales was engaged in several causes to protect his fellow Latinos. Dr. Morales worked as a federal enforcement officer monitoring Bracero camps, and later as a union organizer and recruiter for Mexican workers. And as you know, colleagues, Bracero camps were the camps where we allowed Mexican immigrants to come and work here on a pass, and these camps essentially created a whole labor force for this great country. This set the stage for his life work and founding of the Mexican American Opportunity Foundation in 1963, to become the largest Latino-based human service nonprofit organization in the nation. Again, I want to acknowledge Gilberto Gonzalez, Chief Development Officer for the Mexican American Foundation. Thank you for sharing this time with us, for being here. I know Martin Castro was here. He's the President and CEO of the Mexican American Opportunity Foundation. So I want to thank you for being here, and may he rest in peace.
Thank you, indeed. We'll put all members on the, do all members. I skipped Mr. Zine, I'm sorry. We'll come back around.
Thank you, Mr. President. Member of the city family passed away, Raina Gabin. Familiar, friendly face for almost 16 years. Raina Gabin was a dedicated member of the City of Los Angeles family, a hard worker, and devoted to each task put forth in front of her. She was a team player and a great colleague. Served as a field deputy for the 3rd Council District under Council Member Laura Chick for 8 years, then Deputy Director and Chief of Staff for my office for 5 years, 2.5 years as a Deputy to Controller Laura Chick, beloved longtime friend of our Controller Laura Chick, who I spoke with on the phone, and she wanted to join me in this, but she's very, very sad and unable to come down for this adjourning motion due to the trauma that they were very, very close friends, Raina Gabin and Controller Laura Chick. Raina excelled in constituent and community issues, solving problems, and making lots of friends along the way. Had wonderful stories, an infectious laugh, and a shining personality that made everyone she met want to know her better. Raina was a terrific cook, enjoyed traveling, going to the beach and needlepoint. One of her lifelong dreams was to travel to Italy, which she was able to do on her 50th birthday. Her friends from Council District 3, colleagues and family gave her a plane ticket to do so. Her children were the absolute light of her life. A very big and sad loss to her City Hall friends and colleagues, our constituents, and everyone that knew her, especially her family. I met Raina Gabin when I was with the police department. I remember raising money for the DARE program, and she worked for a man, Eddie Saunders. I met Raina, wonderful mom, 2 wonderful children, and we became friends at that time. I ran for council office at that time. Laura Chick was running. Joy Pikus was the incumbent. And Raina was torn between who should she work for, me or Laura Chick. So I remember they had both signs in front of the houses. Vote for Zion, vote for Chick. Subsequent to that, Laura won. Raina stayed on with her through her entire term as a council member. I was elected in 2001, and Raina was the district director, went on to be chief of staff. Just a wonderful lady who always helping others in the community, at the forefront of helping others. And she suffered many bouts with cancer and brain tumors, and ultimately she passed. So may she rest in peace. The funeral is going to be tomorrow. They don't have arrangements or making arrangements at this time. And information can be obtained from the Controller's Office at 213-978-7241. She's survived by daughter Katie and son JJ, her parents. May Raina Gabin rest in peace. Thank you.
We'll do all members on that one. Mr. Weezer wanted to comment on Mr. Reyes, and I think Mr. Alarcon did as well on that one. Mr. Weezer?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I wanted to add to a journey in memory of Dionisio Morales, the urban Cesar Chavez, and thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. And many of you remember that he was just here a couple of weeks ago, and someone who, despite his age, still had a great memory and great functioning brain, that he still advanced the cause that he was so committed to and was so articulate about his thoughts and ideas and how to bring more equality to the United States. I attended the funeral yesterday. My wife is a good friend of his daughter, Magdalena, and his daughter gave a beautiful speech about the type of person that he was, someone who was very proud of his roots, while at the same time being proud to be an American and constantly working to make this a better place, not only for Latinos, but for all of us. I was told about 2 early episodes in his life that really shaped his thinking about what he should do with his own life. It was a time when he was removed forcefully from a movie theater simply for being Mexican, and that, some people have said, led him to ensure that he dedicated his own life to make sure that that didn't happen to anyone else again. And in his biography, he mentioned that if America is to survive based on its ideology of justice and equality for all, it must eradicate the cancer of prejudice that is a social epidemic. The cure, he concluded, was enlightenment, the defeat of ignorance, and education is the equalizer. Dionisio was a great man and someone who reached out to me when I was on the school board, who wanted to assure, as he said, that young people know what it was like for people like him to struggle. And now that there's more of us involved and active, he was certainly a pioneer and someone who will be remembered for a long time. We had the funeral yesterday. There's also a memorial service this Friday, October 3rd at 9 a.m. at the Cathedral for those of you who would like to attend. He is survived by his wife, Maria, his 2 daughters, Margarita and Magdalena, his sons, Dionisio Jr. and Tim, grandchildren, Rosalina, Zenaith, Padilla, and great-grandchildren, Altair, El Chacal, and Cuauhtemoc. And this was one of those individuals, just beautiful, charming, and inspiring, and someone who you've seen that has sacrificed his own life to make life better for others. And I will certainly miss his advice and wisdom that he shared with me.
Thank you, Mr. Rizar. Mr. Labange?
Members, I ask for all adjourn in memory of Paul Newman, one of the most fantastic Americans, an actor who was influenced in so many different ways. Married to Joanne, his wife for over 50 years, survived by his daughters Stephanie, Nell, and Suzanne. Additionally, I ask we adjourn in memory all members, Jesse and David Brackett, young twins, going home the other night up Beechwood and tragically had a fatal accident in Beechwood Canyon in my district. Jesse and David Brackett, survived by their parents. Also, I ask we adjourn in memory of Jack Faulkner, a great member of the Los Angeles Rams, 53 years in professional football, was a great educator as a coach. Jack Faulkner is survived by his wife Debbie, 3 sons and a daughter. Also, I ask we adjourn in memory of John Jones, 43-year-old son of Dick and Ann Jones, who run the Irish shop, import shop in Hollywood. And last, members, I ask we adjourn in memory of Milt Eugene Davis. He was my mentor. He's a beautiful man. He lived to be 79. He grew up, born in Oklahoma, came to Los Angeles as a young man, went to Jefferson High School, was all B football, Southern League, came to Los Angeles City College where he ran track. He got a scholarship to UCLA. It was there that Duffy Drake, the track coach, saw him and said, "You should play football," which he played for Red Sanders in 1952 and 1953. He was drafted by the Detroit Lions. He went there, was the only African American to make the team, and was cut because they had to have 2 members to stay in Booker, Washington hotels, and he couldn't make the team. Came back to Los Angeles, got drafted by Uncle Sam, served 2 years in Germany in occupied forces in Germany for the United States Army. From there, he came back, and with Big Daddy Lipscomb, which some of us will remember, used to practice at a park in South L.A. He came back, and he tried out with the Colts. He played for the Colts, was the Rookie of the Year in 1957, was a great interceptor, played 4 years in the league, had over 23 interceptions in 43 games, 27 interceptions in 43 games, still a record to this day. But all that is being said that he left early from the league, became a great educator. His obituary in today's Times, Milt Davis, 1929 to 2008, All-Pro defensive back with the Colts, and L.A. school teacher and counselor. He would love that school teacher and counselor because he was my counselor, my school teacher. Back then, the Unified District was the same as the Community College District, and he taught at L.A. City College. He helped thousands and thousands and thousands of young people. He also was a professional scout where he scouted for Baltimore as well as Miami and Detroit over the years. I got to visit him this summer. He just last September, he was part of the delegation to go to Berlin for our sister city 40th anniversary. And when I was in Berlin, that man right there, Max, when I was in Berlin, he wanted to know how Mr. Davis is doing because he was so impressionable person. He cared about people. He retired up in the Eugene, Oregon area. He was a gentleman farmer and a beautiful man, survived by his wife, Yvonne, and also 3 children, Hillary, Allison, and his son, Brian. They also have 3 grandchildren. I got to visit with him this summer up in Eugene, and he was truly a remarkable individual who was so inspiring. He was my mentor, and as you remember, for those of you who were there at the observatory in 2001 when I swore in, he introduced me. He could make us all walk down an alley and not be afraid of the dark. He was a great leader and an inspiration. Cancer got him, but took him straight to heaven. Milt Davis. I ask we all adjourn in his beautiful memory. A wonderful human being that, and again, and not just me, but thousands and thousands, all my brothers, anyone who went to Marshall High School, who had Coach Davis, knew the right thing to do, and anybody at City College got the right influence, and he also was a great impact in the National Football League for scouts as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Ms. Hahn, then Ms. Gruhl, then Mr. Alarcon.
Thank you, Tom. That was a beautiful tribute. That was a beautiful tribute. I'd like us to adjourn today in the memory of George Parks. His service was yesterday. But since we didn't have council, we couldn't adjourn in time for that. But I wanted us to adjourn today. Just a great man. George was born in Kentucky to George Washington Parks and Eleanor Victoria Brooks Parks. He and his older sister, Eleanor, grew up in a loving, strict Christian home in the Richmond area. In high school, where his dad was the principal and the coach, George played football and basketball. He attended North Carolina College for Negroes, now North Carolina Central. And after that, he transferred to Howard University Law School in Washington, D.C. After law school, he earned a master's in law from George Washington University School of Law. He was a partner in the law firm of Coleman, Parks, and Washington. He moved to Los Angeles in 1959, and he married Betty Reynolds, and they had a child, Paula Lynn Parks. And he talked about how much he loved her so much and enjoyed playing with her when she was a little girl at parks and taking her swimming. He found his niche in the real estate law, directing Merchants Title Company and Housing Opportunity Center. He was the first black president of the Crenshaw Chamber of Commerce. He also became very active politically. He worked for City Council member Dave Cunningham, as well as my father, Kenny Hahn. He became active in the housing industry, founding the Lutheran Housing Corporation. He organized in the 1980s the first neighborhood watch program. He was active in the South Carthay neighborhood. He was also one of the founders of the New Frontier Democratic Club. He, at MTA, he worked in the legal department, and he was active in the Metro Choir and founded the African American Employees Association. He was known as such a loving person. He had a quick wit. He was a great storyteller, and he many times told long stories. But he was just a real gentleman, and you might remember we also honored George Parks here in City Council not that long ago for his incredible life and work and activism. And he is survived by his daughter, Paula Lynn Parks, son-in-law, Bradford Anderson, son, Willia Earl Parks, grandchildren, Christopher Parks Anderson, Alexis Parks Anderson, and Nathaniel Parks Anderson, and nieces, Tassa Washington and Eleanor Smothers. He will be very, very missed. George Parks was just a great, great man. I feel honored to have known him. I consider him a great, dear friend of the Hahn family. But more than that, he just really left a great life of legacy. He had a great legacy and a great life of activism and really fighting for people.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you. Yes, all members. He was great, and it's sad when we're talking about some people who were during the Bradley time, where I met Dionisio Morales and mentioned that last couple weeks ago when he was here, and Mr. Parks, who similarly was active in the Bradley administration, and we lost a friend. I know Tom and Richard of Dodo Meyer, who died at the age of 83, and there was a wonderful obituary in the paper yesterday, I believe it was, and received the email. Last week, I sat down with B. Lavery, and B and I and Will Marshall were sitting and talking with Lynn Goldfarb. I was sharing with Mr. Smith this morning about they're preparing potentially to do a documentary about Tom Bradley. And believe it or not, there's never been a documentary about him or a book, a serious book about his life. And we talked about the importance of interviewing Dodo because she was such an early supporter of his and really was the beginning of that African American Jewish coalition that was established in the early, late 69, early 70s. And she... people used to tease her, here you have someone, her name was Doris, but she went by Dodo, and people couldn't quite understand that. And she was a powerhouse, those of you that knew her, she only stood about this tall. And she and her husband, Stanley, were such activists. She died on Saturday, September 27th, 2008, of emphysema at the age of 83. She was born in Racine, Wisconsin on December 4th, 1924, and moved to Los Angeles in 1939 when her father, Nathan Bloomberg, became the head of Universal Studios. She attended UCLA for a year before serving as a nurse's aide at a military hospital in the Valley during World War II. And in 1947, she married Stanley Meyer, who was the executive and co-producer of the popular Dragnet television series. He died in 1999. They lived in this great condo townhouse right there overlooking the Pacific Ocean, which was absolutely beautiful, and enjoyed their nights and days there looking out and really enjoying that. She volunteered in the 1960s. She campaigned for John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. She was a major supporter of Wilson Riles, the reform-minded superintendent of public instruction, who became the first black official elected to statewide office in 1970. She was also the founding member of Women For, an early women's political action committee. She was a politically active mother of 4 children when she became an early supporter of Tom Bradley's for his first unsuccessful run for mayor in 1969. When he won in 1973, he made Dodo his representative at a time when the Valley was undergoing significant growing pains by the issues of buffeted by busing, demographic shifts, and a major development. She served, prior to Mr. Alarcon, she served 2 decades as the San Fernando Valley's liaison to City Hall during the Bradley administration, and as I mentioned, really helped forge that first black-Jewish coalition in the city. She was instrumental in recognizing how important it was to have city government in the San Fernando Valley, so they wouldn't have to drive downtown to get a building permit or a building license. She brought the mayor to the Valley, to Van Nuys City Hall at regular intervals to meet their constituents and hear their concern. She worked out of that Van Nuys City Hall for 17 years, during which time she estimated that she represented the mayor at 18,100 breakfasts and an even more staggering number of dinners. She spent the last 3 years of the Bradley administration assigned to special projects at City Hall, and she retired in the mid-1990s after working briefly for LA County Supervisor Ed Edelman. She was best known for her advocacy for arts in the San Fernando Valley and a champion of the LA's Best School program as well. And she really was called that unofficial mayor of the San Fernando Valley. She handled every complaint from potholes, overgrown trees, to the expansion of Lopez Canyon landfill and conflict between the Burbank and Van Nuys airports. And she often would tell me stories, because I did see her as a mentor and tried to get everything from her as I could over the years. And she said, you know, those first campaigns for Tom Bradley and being in the San Fernando Valley, she was, lots of threats, lots of challenges to her, but she was dedicated to the mayor. And she would tell, here was Tom Bradley, 6'5", and she was barely, I think, 5 feet, and she would tell Tom Bradley exactly what she thought and kind of stick her finger up at him. And she was just an extraordinary woman, and someone I know that all of us will miss, and really is an icon, and to me a mentor and a great friend, and a sad. It's one of those things where you talk about her a week ago and say, I should check in and see how she's doing, and then to hear that she had died. But I know we will find clips of what she did for Tom Bradley and include that ultimately, because she was a true supporter. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon.
I just want to add to Wendy's comments regarding Dodo. Dodo was an amazing person. First of all, let me say that I've had some pretty tough elections, where things got a little nasty, and one in particular, actually 2 elections that were very, very close. But one of the toughest things I ever had to do in my life, in my career, were to fill Dodo's tiny little shoes in the San Fernando Valley. She, I think, epitomized the coming together of Los Angeles across color lines. If we could have a list of civil rights leaders, she would have to be on them here in Los Angeles, but nobody would know that because she was behind the scenes helping Mayor Bradley bring the city together. She did the same thing in the San Fernando Valley. It was her and Frankie Schneider, who created the Valley Reps organization. Greg, I know, Dennis, I believe, all of us, just about all of us in the Valley, have come up through that organization. The interesting thing about that is the elected officials were not invited to the meeting unless they had a particular subject and they had to stick to that subject. They couldn't politicize that group of people who worked for elected officials. Her purpose was not to carry an agenda other than just bringing people together to communicate in the San Fernando Valley. I think she carried in her heart a feeling that if the Valley was going to have a say in city government, they had to be a little more cohesive in how they worked together, and that's why they created the Valley Reps organization. I'll tell you a little story about Dodo just to tell you how tough she was, and it was really a lesson for me. In 1989, Mayor Bradley was running his final term. I was assigned to manage the San Fernando Valley office, and on opening day, there was a constituent, all of you know him if you're in the San Fernando Valley, who, when Mayor Bradley walked to the front of the little office on Balboa and Victory, this guy walked up to Mayor Bradley with an opponent's sign and said, "I'm supporting this person." Well, Mayor Bradley quickly grabbed the sign, tore it in half, and threw it down. And I can say that now. But when the person went to pick it up, Dodo stood on top of both pieces with her little feet, and she went like this, and she wouldn't move. And it taught me a tremendous lesson about loyalty. She was fiercely loyal. She believed that Mayor Bradley's leadership in Los Angeles was bigger than Los Angeles, that it was an important message to the United States, that in a city, one of the largest cities in the world, that we could look beyond color, that we could come together with all our diversity, and that we could elect the first black mayor from the city of Los Angeles, and that he could lead for 20 years. She felt that that message was important for the kids. She felt that message was important for all people. She saw the transitions of our community coming in terms of its diversity, and she would be a champion for bringing people together to talk about things. She didn't have to. She was well off in her own right before, when at birth, she was well, I shouldn't say she was well off at birth, but her family did very well. And she did it because it was something she absolutely believed, that people need to get out to work hard to make their government work for them. Isn't it interesting where we are in today's world, where I think more than ever this country needs for people to come out and drive our government instead of the government driving them. People need to vote. Well, she was an absolute believer in civil rights. She was an absolute believer in promoting the San Fernando Valley, which in many ways got ignored. She was a tough advocate in whatever the cause may be. She also had a very soft side and was an extremely giving, charitable person. For me, having taken her place, it was very difficult, as you might imagine, but one thing that wasn't difficult was that Dodo welcomed me and helped me, and quite often would pick up the phone and say, "Hey, you need to take a look at this, you need to take a look at that, and watch out for this and watch out for that." I could do the same with her, and did on many occasions. I also want to say that my office is taking this particularly hard because my secretary, Nancy Hodges, was her secretary for 15 or 16 years since she was a teenager, I think an intern. Really, Dodo is a part of our office family in that way. And so we're all saddened by her loss, but we hope that the spirit that she gave to the city of Los Angeles will be embraced by the people of Los Angeles so that we can struggle during these tough economic times and bring our city together like she did in the course of her lifetime.
Thank you, Mr. LeBon.
Add to that, just something to say that she's just a very special woman, and that was a very special time. And for Mayor Bradley to see that in somebody and give her the power which was so important, was another vision that Mr. Bradley had. And I also love when you went to the valley, you went to a house, and you really went to a valley house. It had a big, big house off of Balboa. And just as Mr. Bradley was tall, so was Mr. Ferraro, and it was always fun to see them together. But God bless Dodo Meyer and the service she gave Los Angeles.
Mr. Reyes.
Colleagues, I wanted to make sure I shared this with you that in lieu of flowers, Morales family has requested donations be made to the Dionisio Morales Destiny Fund at 1317 Del Norte Road, Suite 150 in Camarillo, California 93010. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? We'll do all members on Dodo. Please call the roll. We'll next be in session on Friday. That will be in Van Nuys City Hall on Friday, October 3rd. Till then, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.